Chapter 481, Duan Lingtian's Plan. The person who'd arrived was none other than Duan Lingtian, who was carried into the sky by the little gold mouse. Little bastard, you've finally appeared. Early on, when Duan Lingtian's voice sounded out, Zhao Ming's expression had completely went gloomy. Now when he saw Duan Lingtian appear, his face revealed exceedingly evil coldness, and his eyes flickered with ghastly cold lights. Within the cold lights, killing intent was fully displayed. Idiot! Duan Lingtian stood up on the little gold mouse's back, then looked down from a higher position at Zhao Ming as he spoke indifferently. Idiot! As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, Qin Shang, who stood at the side, was stunned. Even Zhao Ming and the two by his side were stunned. Besides Zhao Ming, the three of them felt their scalps go numb. Duan Lingtian, a little fellow that hasn't even stepped into the void-prying stage, actually dared provoke Zhao Ming like this. Little bastard, you're courting death. The origin energy on Zhao Ming's body skyrocketed, and his terrifying wind concept twined around his body as it emitted a wave of terrifying aura. Above him, 13 ancient horned dragon silhouettes condensed into form, and there coiled downwards with oppressive imposing might. 6th level void initiation stage. 5th level wind concept. Presently, as Zhao Ming stood there, strands of light azure chi flickered around the origin energy that surrounded his body, and he seemed like he'd transformed into a god of wind. Elder Ming. Qin Zhang's expression went gloomy when she saw Zhao Ming intending to attack Duan Lingtian. One of you was formerly a sect guardian elder of the demonic Lotus Blade sect, another one of you was formerly a sect guarding elder of the Origin Convergence sect. I ought to have not remembered wrongly, right? Right when Zhao Ming's imposing manner shot into the sky like a rainbow and intended to attack, Duan Lingtian, who was at the eye of the storm, instead had a calm expression, and he took his time to look towards the red-clothed old man and green-clothed old man that stood by Zhao Ming's side and spoke slowly. HMPH. Duan Lingtian, you were lucky that we weren't able to kill you at the peak of Dubi Peak that day, however, you're dead today. The red-clothed old man spoke in a low voice. The green-clothed old man glanced indifferently at Duan Lingtian, and his indifferent gaze was as if he was looking at a corpse. Perhaps, in his eyes, Duan Lingtian was already a corpse. I originally wanted to share a good thing with the two of you, but since both of you aren't interested, then I won't speak of it. Go ahead and let Zhao Ming kill me. Duan Lingtian took his time to speak once more, and he had a shameless expression. HMPH, you're being deliberately mystifying. Zhao Ming's face sank. He regarded Duan Lingtian as beneath his notice, and his origin energy skyrocketed with the raise of his hand. Whoosh! Wind concept twined around him, causing the air to freeze as if all the air had been completely extracted. When she saw Zhao Ming about to attack, a spirit sword that seemed like it was brimming with autumn water appeared in her hand, and her pair of beautiful eyes flickered with a sheen of seriousness. She didn't have the slightest certainty when facing Zhao Ming. Die! Zhao Ming abruptly shouted out explosively. The origin energy on his hand roared, and he carried along the origin energy that was condensed from him. 5th level wind concept, seeming to have transformed into a wind dragon that opened its bloody mouth and bit at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's expression remained unchanged, and he didn't move aside nor dodge. Qin Zhang's face went grim. Origin energy coiled around the spirit sword in his hand as a peerlessly sharp sword concept condensed onto it, and she was preparing to attack. Peak Master Qin Shang, you don't have to do anything. Right at this moment, a voice transmission sounded out by Qin Zhang's ears, and it caused her to be unable to refrain from being stunned. Then she looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian smiled confidently at Qin Shang. It was exactly him who'd sent a voice transmission to her. Although Qin Shang didn't know where Duan Lingtian got his confidence from, she still chose to believe Duan Lingtian. Right when she dispersed the origin energy on her sword, the scene before her caused her to be dumbstruck. Bang! Bang! 2 enormous bangs practically sounded out at the same time, and the sound of the bangs tore apart the sky with great strength. It was the red-clothed old man and green-clothed old man that had attacked at the same time. 2 thick and condensed origin energy swept out, accompanied by the strength of their concepts, and it easily stopped the attack Zhao Ming executed against Duan Lingtian. Tang Huo, Zhang Lin, what's the meaning of this? Zhao Ming's face went gloomy as he looked angrily towards the 2 old men. He wouldn't be surprised if it was Qin Shang that had attacked, and he wouldn't take Qin Shang seriously. After all, Qin Shang was only a 5th level void initiation stage martial artist, and was far inferior when compared to him. But any one of the 2 old men by his side had strengths that weren't inferior to his. Most importantly, the two of them actually stopped him from killing Duan Lingtian. He even slightly doubted on which side these two old fellows stood on. Zhao Ming, don't be angry, we're just curious of what good thing does this Duan Lingtian have to share with us, said the red-clothed old man, the guardian elder of the former demonic Lotus Blade sect, Tang Huo, with a smile. Exactly. Zhang Lin, the green-clothed old man who was the guardian elder of the former Origin Convergence sect, nodded as well. Could it be that both of you can't perceive that he's being deliberately mystifying, and he's stalling? Zhao Ming's face sank. Elder Ming, could it be that you're afraid this kid will play tricks in front of you? Tang Huo smiled lightly, and after he appeased Zhao Ming, he looked at Duan Lingtian and asked. Duan Lingtian, you can speak now. Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed and glanced deeply at Tang Huo. Elder Huo is an intelligent person as expected, since it's like this, then I'll tell all of you. I know of a place, and there's 10,000-year stalactite milk there. 10,000-year stalactite milk. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, the expressions of the three elders were instantly filled with shock. Even Qin Shang had an astonished expression. As a figure that stood at the peak of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, they were naturally completely clear of what 10,000-year stalactite milk was. 10,000-year stalactite milk was able to help increase a martial artist's natural talent to the limit. Most importantly, 10,000-year stalactite milk didn't have any restrictions, and anyone could consume it. Even if they consumed it, it would have the same effect. They could imagine that if they were able to obtain the 10,000-year stalactite milk and increase their natural talent to the limit, then breaking through to the 7th level of the void initiation stage wasn't anything difficult at all. Perhaps, when that time has really come, their goals would have changed. They wouldn't be over-absorbed with the 7th level of the void initiation stage and would perhaps consider charging into the void interpretation stage. For a time, it was completely deathly silent high in the sky, and only waves of heavy breathing could be heard. Duan Lingtian looked calmly at the three old men before him. He knew that the three old men were tempted. Actually, the situation before him could be said to be created by him from careful consideration. Because he knew that if he didn't do this, then even if he was able to escape the Crimson Sky Kingdom by luck, everyone related to him in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, like the members of the Divine Might Marquis estate and the members of the Duan clan, would surely be unable to escape this calamity. This wasn't something that he wanted to see, so, he thought of this method. Duan Lingtian, do you really know where there's 10,000-year stalactite milk? Qin Shang looked at Duan Lingtian and asked via voice transmission, and her tone contained slight anxiousness mixed within. Even she couldn't help but be tempted by the 10,000-year stalactite milk. Peak Master Qin Shang, I do indeed know where there's 10,000-year stalactite milk, even to the extent that I myself have consumed sufficient 10,000-year stalactite milk, and my natural talent has increased to the extreme of a martial artist in Cloud Continent. It's not only me, even Kair and Little Fei have consumed sufficient 10,000-year stalactite milk like me, and their natural talents aren't inferior to mine. Duan Lingtian didn't hold back and spoke of everything. To Duan Lingtian, the 10,000-year stalactite milk at the 7-star sword sect's Megrez peak was already of no use. After all, the 10,000-year stalactite milk that had accumulated there for many years had practically been completely cleaned out by him. The few drops of 10,000-year stalactite milk that dripped down with great difficulty during these short few years were of no great use to him. So long as I can enter the foreign lands, I'll be able to head to the location of the 10,000-year stalactite milk that the Rebirth Martial Emperor encountered. Presently, it has already been over 10,000 years since the Rebirth Martial Emperor cleaned out the 10,000-year stalactite milk at that place. When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up. Once I've found that place, then I'll be able to obtain large amounts of 10,000-year stalactite milk again. Kair has consumed 10,000-year stalactite milk as well. Qin Shang was dazed. Only now did she realize that there was a reason why that personal disciple she doted on possessed such a monstrous natural talent in the martial Tao. Peak Master Qin Shang. Duan Lingtian didn't dare hesitate when he saw Zhao Ming and the others were about to recover from their shock, and he hurriedly sent a voice transmission into Qin Zhang's ears. In a moment, I'll use the 10,000-year stalactite milk to coerce and trick them to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom. At that time, please take my family members, the members of the Divine Might Marquis estate, and the members of the Duan to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial city and find a safe place to conceal themselves. So long as it's someone related to me, then don't leave a single one and take all of them with you. Besides that, I discovered the passageway that headed to that 10,000-year stalactites behind the precipice at the peak of Megrez Peak all those years ago. There's a tilted tree at the entrance of the cave passageway, and it's extremely conspicuous. That place is quite a good place for cultivating, and you can bring Mo Yu along to cultivate there. Mo Yu is the sect leader's personal disciple and the future hope of the 7-star sword sect. I'll leave him to you, said Duan Lingtian to Qin Shang. Duan Lingtian, this won't do. This is too risky. Qin Shang perceived that Duan Lingtian's words contained the intention of passing on the affairs after his death, and she hurriedly shook her head in refusal and was unwilling to agree. Peak Master Qin Shang, we don't have a choice, don't worry, I might be fine. So long as I find an opportunity, I'll completely shake off the control of these 3 old fellows and escape from the tiger's mouth. Duan Lingtian continued to say via voice transmission. Qin Xian went silent. She knew that Duan Lingtian's words were true, and there was no wish of exaggerating. At this time, they indeed didn't have a choice. A single Zhao Ming was in existence that she was unable to go against. Whereas now, there were still 2 more powerhouses with strengths not inferior to Zhao Ming by Zhao Ming's side, and this caused her to feel a wave of powerlessness. Duan Lingtian, you must survive. Ke is still waiting for you, Li Fei is still waiting for you. In the end, Qin Shang chose to compromise and agreed. 481 Chapter 482, FK off. When did I become so noble? Duan Lingtian secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Qin Shang agree, and at the same time, a wisp of self-ridicule couldn't help but appear on his face. Truthfully speaking, he didn't even have 10% certainty in escaping under the eyes of 3 6th-level void initiation stage experts. But he knew that he had no choice. Since Zhao Ming's group of 3 had come here today, then he faced 2 choices. One of them was to die here. Moreover, his relatives and people related to him might have to face Zhao Ming's rage. At that time, not only would he die, there might be many people who'd have to die with him. The other choice is to draw Zhao Ming's group of 3 away and win a slim chance of survival. After all, he didn't really plan to bring Zhao Ming's group of 3 to the 10,000-year stalactite cave. These 3 people were all members of the Azure Forest Tri-sect and had participated in annihilating the 7-star sword sect. They could be said to be irreconcilable enemies, so it was naturally impossible for him to be so kind and offer up the 10,000-year stalactite cave to them. Thus, he was only seizing an opportunity for himself to escape Zhao Ming's group of 3. Furthermore, so long as he drew Zhao Ming's group of 3 away, his family, friends, and everyone related to him wouldn't be in any danger as long as they left with Qin Shang. This was where his objective lay. Moreover, not to mention his group of friends, but just his parents were already worth for him to do this. Mother, you have to happily live on with father. Duan Lingtian silently said to himself in his heart. He'd already planned for the worst. Whereas now, within the large courtyard house in the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial city's inner city. At the front courtyard, a group of people led by Duan Rufeng and Li Ru stood there as they looked up into the sky. Aunt Ru, he'll be fine, right? Xiaolan, who stood by Li Ru's side, had a worried expression and a slightly pale countenance, and her eyes held tears that were about to drip down. Princess Bai Yao stood on the other side of Li Ru. She held tightly onto Li Ru's hand, and her palm was already completely wet with sweat. That kid really has good fortune in love. Duan Rufeng, who stood at the side, glanced at Xiaolan and Princess Bai Yao, and he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. He was able to discern that no matter if it was Xiaolan or Princess Bai Yao, their concern towards Duan Lingtian came from the heart, and there wasn't the slightest falseness or pretending. Senior brother Duan Lingtian. Mo Yu looked up into the sky, his fists clenched tightly, and his expression was extremely gloomy. At this moment, he hated himself for being too weak and being unable to help Duan Lingtian. Young master, the manager, Jing Ru, bit her lower lips and had a worried expression as well. High above in the sky, behind the clouds and mist, Zhao Ming, Tang Huo, and Zhang Lin, the 3 guardian elders of the Azure Forest Tri-sect, recovered from their shock and their gazes shot at Duan Lingtian in unison. Duan Lingtian, is everything you just said true? You've really seen 10,000-year stalactite milk and know where it is? Tang Huo looked at Duan Lingtian with a burning gaze. Zhang Lin stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian, and his gaze that seemed to be able to penetrate everything descended onto Duan Lingtian, seeming to want to discern if Duan Lingtian was lying. Duan Lingtian, can you prove that you've seen 10,000-year stalactite milk? If you can't, then you're playing tricks. I think that if you're unable to prove it, Tang Huo and Zhang Lin won't stop me from killing you. Fierce lights flickered within Zhao Ming's eyes as he spoke word for word. Obviously, when faced with the temptation of 10,000-year stalactite milk, even Zhao Ming was tempted now. At this moment, he seemed to have tossed the hatred and vengeance for his son and grandson to the back of his head, and what he thought in his heart was all about the improvement of his natural talent once he consumed the 10,000-year stalactite milk. As far as he was concerned, so long as he consumed the 10,000-year stalactite milk, his natural talent in the martial Dao would improve. Once his natural talent in the martial Dao improved, the walls of the final bottleneck of the 6th level of the void initiation stage that had trapped him for many years would be charged open by him in one go. At that time, he would officially step into the 7th level of the void initiation stage and stand at the peak of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, and compete with that person from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial family and was the #1 expert in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Now, just thinking about it caused a wave of excitement in his heart. Exactly. Tang Huo and Zhang Lin both nodded when they heard Zhao Ming, and they stated their attitude clearly. If you, Duan Ling Tian, are unable to prove that you've seen the 10,000-year stalactite milk, then we won't stop Zhao Ming from killing you anymore. Duan Ling Tian wasn't surprised by the request of Zhao Ming's group of 3. When he saw the 3 of them looking over with burning gazes, Duan Ling Tian raised his hand and a pill bottle appeared there. Subsequently, he removed the pill bottle's stopper and turned it upside down. Drip. A drop of milk-white liquid dripped onto the tip of Duan Ling Tian's finger, and the liquid flickered with a milk-white sheen. A strand of strange aura suffused out. It's really the 10,000-year stalactite milk. Although Zhao Ming's group of 3 had never seen the 10,000-year stalactite milk before, just the aura that suffused out from this drop of milky white liquid was sufficient to cause the origin energy in their bodies to lightly pulsate, and it caused them to deeply realize how extraordinary this drop of milky white liquid was. Now, they didn't doubt Duan Ling Tian's words any longer. Right when gazes of Zhao Ming's group of 3 shone as they looked at the 10,000-year stalactite milk in Duan Ling Tian's hand, Duan Ling Tian moved. He suddenly raised his hand. Swish! The 10,000-year stalactite milk in his hand flashed out, directly flashing towards the nearby Qin Shang. Whereas Qin Shang had been reminded by Duan Ling Tian via voice transmission earlier, so when she saw Duan Ling Tian move, she lightly parted her lips, and it was just right to catch this drop of 10,000-year stalactite milk. Instantly, a white light flashed on Qin Zhang's body. As expected of the 10,000-year stalactite milk, so miraculous. Qin Shang felt the medicinal strength of the 10,000-year stalactite milk and she could clearly feel that the origin energy in her body circulated even more swiftly than before. Kid, you. Zhao Ming's group of 3 was gloomy and they stared angrily at Duan Ling Tian when they saw Duan Ling Tian actually gave the 10,000-year stalactite milk to Qin Shang. Why get angry? So long as all of you know the location of the 10,000-year stalactite milk, wouldn't all of you have as much milk as you want? I'm truly sorry, I left hastily the last time and only that drop remained from the 10,000-year stalactite milk that I brought with me. Duan Ling Tian pretended to sigh, then looked at the little gold mouse beneath him. The balance was eaten by her. Sharp lights flickered within the eyes of Zhao Ming's group of 3, and they seemed to have come to some sort of agreement after looking at each other. Little bastard, bring us to the 10,000-year stalactite milk, we can leave your corpse intact. Zhao Ming looked at Duan Ling Tian and shouted coldly. Leave my corpse intact. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and said indifferently, if this is your sincerity, then there's no need for us to continue talking, all of you can kill me now. Duan Ling Tian had an expression that said, go ahead and kill me. You. Duan Ling Tian's actions caused Zhao Ming's expression to go gloomy, and he said with a sunken expression, little bastard, don't push your luck. Push my luck. Duan Ling Tian neither agreed nor disagreed. Elder Ming, your words are mistaken, after all, so long as the 3 of you obtain the 10,000-year stalactite milk, even if all of you aren't young any longer, but relying on the natural talent at the limit that is provided by the 10,000-year stalactite milk, then even if all of you are unable to break through to the void transformation stage in this lifetime, but I presume that breaking through to the void interpretation stage is no problem for all of you. Duan Ling Tian, what do you want? Speak frankly, Tang Huo said directly. Zhang Lin nodded. Exactly, an honest man doesn't resort to insinuations. My request is extremely simple, the 3 of you establish a vow that after I bring the 3 of you to the location of the 10,000-year stalactite milk, all of you can't kill me or lay a hand on me. Otherwise, all of you will be obliterated by the 9 heavenly tribulation. Duan Lingtian spoke it almost word for word. 9 heavenly tribulation. Zhao Ming's face was gloomy when he heard Duan Lingtian. Although the expressions of Tang Huo and Zhang Lin didn't change, they communicated with their gazes for a moment before agreeing. We can agree. Tang Huo, Zhang Lin, you too. Zhao Ming's face became grim, as he never expected that Tang Huo and Zhang Lin wouldn't ask his opinion before arbitrarily agreeing to such an unreasonable request from Duan Lingtian. After all, his son and grandson had died because of Duan Lingtian. He and Duan Lingtian were irreconcilable enemies. Want him to watch idly by as Duan Lingtian escaped from under his nose? He was unable to do it. Zhao Ming. At practically the same instant, Zhao Ming received two voice transmission. We're only establishing a vow that we won't kill him. Once he really brings us to the location of the 10,000-year stalactite milk, we'll capture him back to the sect and ask someone else to kill him. In this way, we won't go against the vow, and you can take revenge for your son and grandson, right? These two voice transmissions were precisely sent into Zhao Ming's ears by Tang Huo and Zhang Lin. Zhao Ming came to a sudden understanding when he heard this. How about it, Elder Ming, you're unwilling to agree? Duan Lingtian looked at Zhao Ming and asked indifferently. I can agree to it. Zhao Ming gnashed his teeth as he spoke. Elder Ming, you actually agreed so readily. Duan Lingtian's brows raised and he was slightly surprised. Since it's like this, then the three of you please establish the vow. Zhao Ming's group of three looked at each other when they heard this, then pinched open their fingers at the same time. 3 drops of blood rose into the air. Right when Zhao Ming's group of three intended to establish a vow with the 9 heavenly tribulation, their faces instantly went pale. There's no need to go to so much trouble, you three, FK off. A low and hoarse voice seemed to sweep out from all directions as it spread into the sky and entered into the ears of Duan Lingtian, Qin Shang, and Zhao Ming's group of three. Who? Duan Lingtian and Qin Shang were stunned. Whereas right at this moment, they saw a scene they wouldn't be able to forget in their entire lifetimes. Zhao Ming's group of three floated in the air in the distance, yet their expressions instantly went pale and their faces flushed red. It was as if they suffered an extremely great pressure. Every time the origin energy in their bodies rose up, it would be ruthlessly blasted to dispersal by the strong wind that the shapeless force that descended from the sky had transformed into. 482 Chapter 483, Mysterious Expert. Zhao Ming's face flushed red. It was as if a formidable might had pressed down and enveloped him, causing him to be unable to advance or retreat. At this moment, he still gritted his teeth and bitterly held on, yet his body trembled and was obviously unable to persist for long. Of course, Zhao Ming didn't resign himself to death. Whoosh! The origin energy on his body abruptly started raging, and it seemed like milky white flames that were blazing ceaselessly. However, every instant these white flames rose explosively, they would be smashed to dispersal by a shapeless force. It was as if the shapeless force had transformed into a terrifying strong wind that followed him like a shadow. Even if his body was suffused with a trace of origin energy, it would be directly shattered. Whereas above Zhao Ming, the 8 ancient horned dragon silhouettes that hadn't even completely condensed into form were directly shocked to dispersal, and were annihilated before they could be completed. Ah! Zhao Ming howled in a low voice. He had an unwilling expression as his eyes sprang wide open, and the origin energy on his body rose up once more. This time, the origin energy that rose explosively like flames had a strand of azure chi within it, and it was precisely the 5th level wind concept that Zhao Ming had comprehended. At the same time a total of 13 ancient horned dragon silhouettes intended to condense into form above Zhao Ming. Bang! Unfortunately, even if Zhao Ming used his entire strength, he was still like an ant under the formidable shapeless force, and he couldn't even withstand a blow. Who is it? Stop hiding and show yourself. Zhao Ming's face flushed red to the limit, and a grade 6 spirit sword appeared in his hand. However, even if he relied on a grade 6 spirit sword, he didn't have any way of resisting the formidable pressure that enveloped him. Not only that, the formidable pressure was still endlessly becoming stronger, as if it was a towering and enormous mountain that was pressing onto him, causing him to have nowhere to escape, and he felt as if he would suffocate soon. Furthermore, Tang Huo and Zhang Lin were in a similar situation as Zhao Ming right now. Their cultivations were similar to Zhao Ming. They were now suppressed by the formidable pressure to the point they couldn't catch their breaths, and their faces flushed red as blood filled their eyes. It could be imagined that if this were to continue, the three of them would be crushed into powder sooner or later. Finally, Tang Huo was the first to be unable to endure, emitting a cry as he spat out a mouthful of blood, and then he pleaded for mercy. Senior, spare me. HMPH. A low and hoarse grunt sounded out. Instantly, Tang Huo felt the pressure that enveloped him had vanished without a trace, and this feeling of reacquiring life caused him to be extremely happy. If it wasn't for Zhao Ming and Zhang Lin who were still bitterly struggling over there, he would feel that everything that happened earlier was only him having a daydream. Subsequently, Tang Huo noticed that Duan Lingtian who sat on the enormous gold mouse in the distance Qin Shang who stood at the side seemed to not be enveloped by the pressure exerted by that expert. At the same time, he noticed that Duan Lingtian and Qin Zhang's face revealed astonishment. Duan Lingtian and Qin Shang don't know that expert. At the beginning, Tang Huo thought that expert was helping Duan Lingtian and Qin Shang. But now, Duan Lingtian and Qin Shang obviously didn't know of the existence of that expert. In other words, Duan Lingtian and Qin Shang might not know that expert. However, even then, he didn't dare be presumptuous again now. Senior, spare me, spare me. Finally, Zhang Lin was unable to endure any longer, and he hurriedly begged for mercy after spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood successively. Fortunately, I begged for mercy right at the beginning. Otherwise, I would surely end up like Zhang Lin. As he looked at the Zhang Lin who was pressured to the point of becoming heavily injured, at the same time that Tang Huo felt a lingering fear in his heart, he was secretly pleased. It's still I who possessed the foresight. Along with Zhang Lin begging for mercy, the pressure that enveloped onto his body had vanished without a trace. Thank you, senior. At this instantly, Zhang Lin felt as if he'd arrived in heaven from hell, and he respectfully expressed his gratitude towards the sky. He glanced at Zhao Ming who was still struggling, then shook his head, as he felt that Zhao Ming was wasting his energy. The pressure emitted from that expert is still endlessly strengthening. If Zhao Ming still doesn't beg for mercy within the next 10+ breaths of time, then he'll surely die. This was something that Zhang Lin could be sure of. After consumed a grade 6 great recovery pill, Zhang Lin felt his injuries recover slightly. He looked at Tang Huo and just happened to notice Tang Huo looking at him, and he couldn't help but ask via voice transmission. Tang Huo, exactly what cultivation do you think this expert possesses? He hasn't appeared, yet the pressure condensed from his imposing manner is sufficient to obliterate us. Tang Huo had a serious expression as he replied via voice transmission. Based on my own guess, that expert is at least in existence at the 7th level of the void interpretation stage or above. Even to the extent that it's extremely likely that he's a void transformation stage expert. Void transformation stage. Zhang Lin's figure trembled and he shuddered. A tiny little kingdom actually possesses an existence at the 7th level of the void interpretation stage or above. Has the way of the world changed? Could it be that this is a recluse expert like the legends say? It ought to be. Tang Huo nodded, and he had a perturbed and fearful expression. If he could choose, he'd rather have never come to this Crimson Sky Kingdom. That scene from that moment earlier was something that he couldn't forget for his entire lifetime. Senior, spare me, spare me. Suddenly, Zhao Ming was finally unable to endure and begged for mercy after the time for a few breaths. The blood he spat out was like a miniature waterfall spraying down, and it was a rather magnificent sight. HMPH. The low and hoarse grunt sounded out once more. The terrifying pressure vanished without a trace as if it had never appeared. Meanwhile, Tang Huo and Zhang Lin glanced at Zhao Ming who had a ghastly pale expression, and a wisp of coldness couldn't help but emerge from within their hearts. This was the result of being unyielding. Or to say it in a more rude way, acting strong beyond the limit. I never imagined that there's actually such an expert in the Crimson Sky Kingdom. When Zhao Ming begged for mercy, Duan Lingtian had finally recovered from his shock, and his face was filled with astonishment. He hadn't even shows himself and solely relied on his imposing manner to suppress 3 6th level void initiation stage experts to the point they were unable to catch their breaths, and made them humbly beg for mercy. According to the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, if that expert wasn't far away, then he's at least in existence at the 7th level of the void interpretation stage or above. If that expert is far away, then he's surely in existence at the void transformation stage or above. Duan Lingtian was extremely shocked in his heart. Such a terrifying expert was concealed within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Duan Lingtian, do you know that expert from before? Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian heard Qin Zhang's voice transmission. Duan Lingtian shook his head. How could he possibly know such a terrifying expert? During this lifetime, the strongest expert he'd seen with his own 2 eyes was the Phoenix Nest City's governor, Feng Wudao, that he'd encountered in the Darkstone Empire that day. According to Duan Lingtian's guesses, it was extremely likely that Feng Wudao was a void interpretation stage expert. He had a type of intuition that told him that the existence from before that solely used imposing manner to suppress 3/6th level void initiation stage experts to the point they were unable to catch their breaths surely possessed a strength that surpassed Feng Wudao. Senior, may I ask if you want to protect this Duan Lingtian? Zhao Ming consumed an injury healing pill, and recovered his injuries slightly before taking a deep breath and slowly asking towards the sky. Zhao Ming speaking was something that Tang Huo and Zhang Lin had never expected, and their faces instantly went pale. Is this Zhao Ming courting death? At this moment, they were only too anxious for that expert to completely go into hiding and not appear again or speak again. As for killing Duan Lingtian and killing the weed by the roots for the Azure Forest Trisect, and even the matter of coercing Duan Lingtian to lead them to the 10,000-year stalactite. The future was filled with opportunities. But now, this Zhao Ming seemed to wish for nothing more than for that expert to appear once again. Zhao Ming, if you want to die then don't drag the 2 of us with you. For a time, Tang Huo and Zhang Lin couldn't refrain from blasting voice transmissions into Zhao Ming's ears and spoke angrily. However, Zhao Ming disregarded them and still said in a deep voice, Senior, this Duan Lingtian crippled my grandson and indirectly killed my son, there's an irreconcilable enmity between the 2 of us. I hope that Senior can fulfill my wish and allow this Junior to take him away. Junior is boundlessly grateful. As soon as Zhao Ming said this, Duan Lingtian's brows frowned and he was slightly perturbed in his heart. Qin Shang had a perturbed expression as well. She knew clearly in her heart that so long as that mysterious expert spoke a word of protecting Duan Lingtian, then even if Zhao Ming was unwilling, he would have no choice but to leave. Tang Huo and Zhang Lin held their breaths. Finally, the low and hoarse voice sounded out once more. The enmity between the 2 of you is unrelated to me, and I don't want to get involved. Zhao Ming's gaze lit up when he heard the mysterious expert, and he said excitedly. Thank you, Senior. As he spoke, Zhao Ming took a step forward as he desired to take Duan Lingtian away. Pleasant surprise appeared on Tang Huo and Zhang Lin's faces. There's hope for the 10,000-year stalactite milk. Qin Zhang's face went pale as she pleaded respectfully. Senior, I hope that you can lend a hand and save this child. Qin Shang is boundlessly grateful. A bitter smile appeared on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth as he originally thought he could escape this calamity, but who knew that he would be back to square one. Looks like he would have to return once more to hell from heaven. At practically the instant that the emotions of everyone spun, the low and hoarse voice of the mysterious expert sounded out once more. However, outsiders being presumptuous within the territory of the Crimson Sky Kingdom isn't tolerated. You 3, go back from where you came. All of you can do whatever you like at any other place, and it will be unrelated to me in the slightest. But within the territory of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, you outsider martial artists at the Void Initiation stage and above can forget about hurting a single person or taking away a single person. The mysterious expert's voice was filled with overbearingness, and he spoke in a manner as if he owned the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom. The meaning within his words was extremely simple. All the martial artists from the outside that are at the Void Initiation stage or above can stir up trouble however they pleased at other places, kill whoever they wanted, and take away however they pleased. But in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, this wasn't allowed. He protected every single person in the Crimson Sky Kingdom to not suffer the oppression of a martial artist at the Void Initiation stage and above from outside the kingdom. The excited smiles on the faces of Zhao Ming's group of 3 completely froze when they heard the mysterious expert. Whereas Duan Lingtian and Qin Shang instead had pleasantly surprised expressions. You 3, FK off from Crimson Sky Kingdom at once. If you dare stay, then I can only apply slight punishment to all of you, and let all of you gain a good memory. The mysterious expert's voice sounded out once more, and it contained slight impatience mixed within. Let's go. Tang Huo and Zhang Lin didn't dare hesitate, and they glanced reluctantly at Duan Lingtian before flying off into the sky. 483 Chapter 484, Zhang Lin's Death. Zhao Ming had a gloomy expression as he looked hatefully at Duan Lingtian, and the ghastly killing intent in his eyes was difficult to restrain. However, he didn't dare act rashly at this moment. Since that mysterious expert had already said the word that he wanted to protect everyone within the territory of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. At this moment, no matter how much he wanted to kill Duan Lingtian and how much he didn't want to leave, he had no other way. Before the mysterious expert, he could only compromise. Duan Lingtian, you can hole up like a turtle in the Crimson Sky Kingdom for your entire life, otherwise, I, Zhao Ming, will absolutely not let you off. Zhao Ming swept Duan Lingtian with his cold and indifferent gaze in the end, then intended to leave. Then I'll wait and see. Duan Lingtian smiled indifferently, and he seemed to not mind in the slightest. Zhao Ming's body trembled and the flames of rage on his enraged expression seemed as if it was scorching to the limit. He didn't flare up in the end, and left in a sorry state with Tang Huo and Zhang Lin. The three great 6th level void initiation stage experts came hastily and left hastily. They didn't manage to accomplish anything, and it was equivalent to coming for nothing. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief, and he thanked towards the sky. Thank you, senior, for lending a hand. But unfortunately, the voice of that mysterious expert didn't appear once again, and it caused Duan Lingtian to feel that everything seemed like a dream. Of course, he knew that everything wasn't a dream. There was indeed an expert with an extremely terrifying strength existing within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. I never imagined that these would be such a terrifying existence within this tiny Crimson Sky Kingdom. At this moment, Qin Shang had an astonished expression as well. She was completely shocked by the ability of that expert from before. Perhaps, the strength of that expert isn't inferior to Big Sister. Qin Shang took a deep breath and slowly calmed down her mood, then looked at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, was Elder Ming speaking the truth earlier? You really crippled his grandson, Zhao Ke? Qin Shang asked Duan Lingtian in bewilderment. As far as she was concerned, Duan Lingtian ought to not be the type of person that was unreasonable, and there was surely something hidden within the facts. Kind of. Duan Lingtian shrugged, and he rubbed the little gold mouse's enlarged head as he slowly spoke of the matter between him and Zhao Lin. He didn't conceal anything as he spoke. In the end, Qin Shang came to a sudden understanding. So that's how it is, in this way, it's that Zhao Lin that brought it upon himself. However, the cultivation method you fabricated, those words that played a trick on others, is indeed slightly, as she finished speaking, Qin Shang didn't know how to continue. Self-castration. To think this little fellow was able to think of such a thing. Duan Lingtian rubbed his nose in embarrassment, then laughed embarrassedly. I didn't think too much at that time, and I just felt that it was fun, unexpectedly, they actually really. Indeed, a muscle meridian rebirth scroll that he fabricated had crippled the most precious thing possessed by Zhao Lin's son. This was something that Duan Lingtian had never expected. At the northern area of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, 3 figures flew swiftly in the sky and directly arrived at the border of the Crimson Sky Kingdom before slowing down. These 3 people were obviously Zhao Ming's group of 3 who had fled in a sorry state from the skies above the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial city. The 3 aged figures stood in the sky and looked at each other, and they could all see the shock in each other's eyes. That expert is too terrifying. Zhang Lin had a slight lingering fear in his heart as he spoke. The Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's territory is ahead. Should we first leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and pass the border between the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and the Crimson Sky Kingdom before discussing about that expert? Tang Huo took a deep breath and glanced at the Crimson Sky Kingdom, and he was slightly afraid as he spoke. Tang Huo's words caused Zhao Ming and Zhang Lin to be unable to refrain from shaking their heads. Zhao Ming just wanted to mock Tang Huo when Zhang Lin had spoken out before him. Tang Huo, you're going backwards the more you live. Undeniably, that expert is indeed extremely formidable. However, how far are we from the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial city? Could it be that you think that expert would be able to know that we didn't leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom? Zhao Ming nodded as he deeply agreed. Tang Huo laughed in self-ridicule when he heard this, and he felt that perhaps he was really too sensitive. Even if it was an expert at the void transformation stage, the expert would probably be unable to monitor them over such a great distance. Unless the expert really had nothing to do and followed them. However, was this possible? Tang Huo asked himself this question, and he felt that the 3 of them ought to not have such a great honor as to be followed by the expert. Right at this moment, a terrifying imposing aura suddenly condensed into form in the sky before descending onto the 3 of them, and it caused the 3 of them who'd just caught their breaths to go pale. They were too familiar with this imposing aura. Say, senior, Tang Huo's face was ghastly pale. Earlier, he was thinking that the expert that protected the Crimson Sky Kingdom ought to not go to the extent of following them. But now it would seem that the facts weren't so. It was very likely that the expert had followed behind them and monitored them to see if they would be obedient and leave. And now, they didn't leave obediently. A trace of despair emerged within his heart, and Zhao Ming and Zhang Lin had almost similar feelings. Zhang Lin had an expression of regret. Zhao Ming instead glared at Zhang Lin, as if he'd completely forgotten that his thoughts earlier were similar to Zhang Lin. Looks like, the three of you took my words in one ear and let it out from the other. Since it's like this, then I can only carry out slight punishment and make all of you remember well. The cold, indifferent, and hoarse voice seemed to sweep out from all directions. For a time, the atmosphere in the entire sky seemed to become slightly strange. Senior, spare me, senior, spare me. Tang Huo had a ghastly pale expression as his body shivered. Although that formidable imposing aura didn't completely suppress him, he didn't dare make the slightest movement. He knew clearly in his heart that if he dared flee then he would die for sure. This was something that he didn't doubt in the slightest. Senior, spare me. Zhao Ming and Zhang Lin's expressions were extremely unsightly, and their eyes were filled with boundless fear. Before today, they practically wouldn't dare believe that with their strengths, they would actually repeatedly beg for mercy before the same person in a tiny little kingdom. However, they understood that if they didn't beg for mercy, they would die for sure. Earlier, it was you that questioned my methods. The hoarse voice was filled with ghastly coldness as it sounded out. At the same time, the air above Zhang Lin roiled as the airflow swept out, seeming to have transformed into circle after circle of ripples that spread out. Whereas at the center of the rippled, the air was compressed, and the clouds and mist roiled. Subsequently, whoosh, a violet-colored bolt of lightning that was thick like a water bucket appeared out of thin air, then struck straight down towards Zhang Lin's head. Zhao Ming and Tang Huo only felt something flash before their eyes. Bang! In practically an instant, before their thoughts even had the time to finishing spinning, they noticed that Zhang Lin who stood nearby had vanished without a trace. Whereas that bolt of violet-colored lightning that was as thick as a water bucket had vanished as well. Zhang Lin's aura had completely vanished. There was only one possibility. Zhang Lin had died. Tang Huo and Zhao Ming's countenance that were already ghastly pale were now pale like a sheet of paper, and their bodies trembled even more intensely. Senior, spare me. Earlier, it was that Zhang Lin who encouraged us to stay behind. Otherwise, we would have done according to your request and left the Crimson Sky Kingdom far away since long ago. Tang Huo hastily begged for mercy, then he looked around in the surroundings, attempting to find the tracks of the mysterious expert. However, no matter how he searched, he didn't discover a trace of the mysterious expert. That expert seemed as if he wasn't in the surroundings at all. Yeah, Senior, so long as you're willing to spare our lives, we'll leave right away, we'll leave right away. Zhao Ming was afraid as well, completely afraid. Zhang Lin was similar to him, they were both guardian elders of the Azure Forest Trisect, and Zhang Lin's strength wasn't inferior to him. But an existence like this didn't even have the time to react when he was obliterated in the blink of an eye, and it caused Zhao Ming to be unable to refrain from feeling terrified. If the both of you dare take half a step into the Crimson Sky Kingdom during your lifetimes, I'll surely annihilate the both of you. The cold, indifferent, and hoarse voice was matchlessly overbearing. FK off. FK off. When they heard the cold shout of the mysterious expert, Tang Huo and Zhao Ming felt a sense of relief, and they hurriedly flew towards the north, leaving the Crimson Sky Kingdom's territory in the blink of an eye and entering the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. After entering into the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, the two of them continuously flew another length of distance, and they only stopped after an hour. The two of them looked at each other and saw the boundless terror in each other's eyes. They secretly resolved in their hearts that no matter what happened in the future, they wouldn't take a single step into the Crimson Sky Kingdom. The warning of the mysterious expert from before had rooted itself and bloomed within their hearts. Looks like if we want to force Duan Lingtian to take us to the location of the 10,000-year stalactite milk in the future, we can only wait for him to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom. After Tang Huo calmed down his mind after getting his life back, he frowned. Obviously, Tang Huo hadn't forgotten the 10,000-year stalactite milk Duan Lingtian spoke of until now. I don't believe he's able to hide within the Crimson Sky Kingdom forever. Zhao Ming gnashed his teeth, and he was enraged to the limit. The hatred he harbored towards Duan Lingtian was difficult to be reached by an outsider. Now, we can only hope that the location of the 10,000-year stalactite milk isn't in the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Tang Huo suddenly thought of a problem, and a wisp of worry appeared on his face. HMPH. About the matter of the 10,000-year stalactite milk, let's wait for Duan Lingtian to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and we'll capture him before talking about it, otherwise, everything would only be a daydream. Zhao Ming grunted. Elder Ming, the matter with the 10,000-year stalactite milk, Tang Huo looked at Zhao Ming and spoke with a serious expression. However, he hadn't finished speaking when he was interrupted by Zhao Ming. Don't worry, I'm not stupid to the point of sharing the 10,000-year stalactite milk with others. The less amount of people that know of this, the more beneficial it is to us. The 10,000-year stalactite milk requires a certain amount to be able to assist us to improve our natural talent to the limit. Tang Huo hadn't finished speaking when Zhao Ming had already guessed his thoughts. Earlier, Zhang Lin almost trapped us in as well. However, it's good that he's dead, as the 10,000-year stalactite milk needed can be reduced by one person's portion. Tang Huo didn't have any fluctuation in his feelings when he mentioned Zhang Lin being killed by the mysterious expert, but when he finished speaking, he revealed slight delight. 484 Chapter 485, Martial Competition of the 10 Dynasties. When Duan Lingtian and Qin Shang descended from the sky and returned to his courtyard house, they noticed that there were many people within the courtyard house. Amongst them, Xiaolan and Princess Bai Yao were the most conspicuous. The two of them stood there like two fairies that had walked out from a painting. After Duan Lingtian appeared, the gloominess on the beautiful faces of the two girls completely dispersed and their faces bloomed into smiles that seemed as if they could overturn all living creatures. This caused Qin Shang to be unable to refrain from shaking her head and sighing. It would seem that the man of her disciple was indeed extremely welcomed. As an experienced person, she naturally clearly noticed the infatuated gazes that the two girls before her own gaze shot at Duan Lingtian. Most importantly, in terms of good looks, these two young women weren't inferior to her disciple, K'er, in the slightest. Father, mother, this is Peak Master Qin Shang, she's K'er's master. I've told you of her before. Duan Lingtian looked at Duan Rufeng and Li Ru as he lightly smiled and introduced. So it's Peak Master Qin Shang, Li Ru is honored. Li Ru nodded to Qin Shang. Peak Master Qin Shang, Duan Rufeng greeted Qin Shang as well. Qin Shang returned a smile then looked at Li Ru with an expression of admiration. Little sister Li Ru, I've heard K'er mention you since long ago, you truly have good fortune. Having such an outstanding son is truly enviable. An enchanting smile bloomed on Li Ru's face when she heard this. There wasn't a single mother that didn't live it when another praised her child, and Li Ru was no exceptions. Peak Master Qin Shang. Before long, under the introduction of Duan Lingtian, Princess Bai Yao and Xiaolan had successively bowed to Qin Shang. They knew clearly in their hearts that this was a higher up of a top sect in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, and her strength was shocking. In terms of status, even the Emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom would have to be respectful towards her. Martial Aunt Qin Shang. Mo Yu looked at Qin Shang with an excited expression, as if he was a small boat that had lost his way and he'd found a dock to berth. Mo Yu and Qin Shang stood at the side, and they communicated with each other via voice transmission. The content of their exchange was none other than the matter of the 7-star sword sect. Tian, who were those people that arrived earlier? Why did they suddenly leave? When she recalled the incident from before, Li Ru looked at Duan Lingtian in slight worry. Whereas Xiaolan, Princess Bai Yao, Jing Ru, and the others looked curiously at Duan Lingtian as well. It was an enemy of mine in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, however, they've already been forced away by Peak Master Qin Shang, and I presume they won't come back in the future. Duan Lingtian randomly found an excuse. He didn't speak of the truth of the matter as he didn't want his father and mother to be worried about him. After all, in the eyes of his father and mother, the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom was undoubtedly a colossus, an existence that was unparalleled. If he were to let his parents know that he was facing a colossus like this, they would undoubtedly be worried for him. Li Ru didn't doubt his words and nodded. That's good. Right, Tian, didn't you say K'er and Fei had followed Peak Master Qin Shang to go on a long journey? Now that Peak Master Qin Shang has returned, why haven't they returned yet? Duan Lingtian smiled. Mom, when K'er and Fei were returning, they just happened to have arrived at the critical juncture for breaking through, so they returned to the sect to cultivate first. As for Peak Master Qin Shang, she came to tell me about this matter. Li Ru came to a sudden understanding. So that's how it is. Subsequently, Li Ru looked at Xiaolan and Princess Bai Yao and said slowly, Lan and Yao rushed over at the first possible moment when they found out you were in danger, and they were even in a state of anxiety for you earlier. Go accompany them to have a meal outside, and take it as helping them get over their shock. As Li Ru finished speaking, she glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian with a manner that said, Mother will not be happy if you dare refuse. Duan Lingtian smiled bitterly as he nodded, and he didn't refuse. The concern of the two girls had caused him to be unable to refrain from feeling warm. Whereas when Xiao Lan and Princess Bai Yao heard Li Ru's words, their beautiful faces couldn't help but be tainted with a wisp of bright red, and they were extremely embarrassed. How good would it be if Lan and Yao were able to become my daughter-in-laws as well? Li Ru looked at the disappearing figures of Duan Lingtian's group of three as she lightly sighed. In the following days, under the orders of his mother, so long as it was in the day, Duan Lingtian was practically accompanying Xiao Lan and Princess Bai Yao. Duan Lingtian was naturally able to guess his mother's thoughts. It wasn't a few days before he found an excuse to stay at home and cultivate in closed doors. As the saying goes, cultivation is timeless. This saying wasn't incorrect in the slightest. 3 months later, Duan Lingtian's cultivation had successfully broken through to the 8th level of the nascent soul stage. During these 3 months, something worthy of mention was that Qin Shang had brought Mo Yu along to return to the 7-star sword sect. Of course, the 7-star sword sect didn't exist any longer, and Qin Shang had brought Mo Yu along to return to the stalactite cave on Megrez Peak. The cultivation environment there could be said to be the best in the entire Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Moreover, with the assistance of the 10,000-year stalactite milk that dripped down from there after a period of time, their cultivation would surely advance by leaps and bounds. Duan Lingtian knew clearly in his heart, now that the 7-star sword sect was annihilated, Qin Shang would take Mo Yu to be the future hope of the 7-star sword sect and foster Mo Yu as the next sect leader of the 7-star sword sect. She was originally the junior sister of the 7-star sword sect's leader, Linggu Jinhong, and now that she was replacing her senior brother to instruct his disciple, everything fell into place. After breaking through to the 8th level of the nascent soul stage, Duan Lingtian walked out of his room with an elated mood, then he sat before the stone table in the front courtyard and teased the little gold mouse. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse rolled about on the stone table, and at the same time, she sent a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. Big brother Lingtian, when will big sister Kair and big sister Li Fei return? Not so fast. Duan Lingtian shook his head. The two little girls were cultivating in the foreign lands, and it was impossible for them to return in the near future. Although he missed the two little girls extremely, he was happy that they were able to obtain such good fortune. He believed that with the fostering of a great power in the foreign lands, the accomplishments of the two little girls would surely be limitless. Little Gold, let's go. We'll go out for a stroll. Duan Lingtian called the little gold mouse, then after the little gold mouse leapt onto his shoulder, he left the courtyard house with large strides. After taking a circle in the imperial city, Duan Lingtian headed to the Divine Might Marquis estate. Young Master Lingtian. The guards at the entrance of the Divine Might Marquis estate respectfully bowed to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly as he entered the Divine Might Marquis estate, and he encountered no resistance within the Divine Might Marquis estate, as if he was strolling in his own backyard garden. Duan Lingtian met Ni Yuan and Ni Fen at the Divine Might Marquis estate's audience hall. Uncle Ni, Big Brother Ni. I heard about some martial competition of the 10 dynasties outside, what's that? Duan Lingtian asked Ni Yuan and Ni Fen curiously. Earlier, before he entered the audience hall, he'd heard Ni Yuan and Ni Fen chatting happily, and their topic seemed to be twined around the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. The martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Just hearing it, one would know it wasn't simple. Little Tian, you've come. Ni Yuan and Ni Fen noticed Duan Lingtian's arrival and their faces were filled with smiles. Subsequently, Ni Yuan explained. The martial competition of the 10 dynasties is supposedly the competition between the young geniuses of the 10 great dynasties including the Darkin dynasty. A competition between the young geniuses of the 10 great dynasties. Duan Lingtian's pupils abruptly constricted when he heard this. The Darkin dynasty could be said to be boundlessly vast, and the geniuses in the martial Tao within it were numerous like the clouds, innumerable. Not to mention the martial competition that included another 9 dynasties that were similar to the Darkin dynasty. Uncle Ni, how did you find out about this martial competition? Duan Lingtian asked curiously. Not to mention the Crimson Sky Kingdom, the Darkin dynasty was even far beyond the reach of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. But now, the grand event of the Darkin dynasty had actually spread to the Crimson Sky Kingdom. The ambassador that the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family sent to our Crimson Sky Kingdom spoke of it. Ni Yuan explained slowly. Supposedly, this martial competition will be held 5 years from now. At that time, the most outstanding young geniuses from the 10 great dynasties including the Darkin dynasty would participate. Whereas this time, the Darkin dynasty ordered the various empires subordinate to it to select the most outstanding young geniuses and head to the capital of the dynasty 4 years from now to compete for the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Whereas the empires instead ordered the various imperial kingdoms subordinate to them to compete for the qualifications to head to the capital of the dynasty 3 years from now. The Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom instead ordered us various kingdoms to send out our most outstanding genius martial artists to head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. At that time, the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom will select the most outstanding genius martial artists to head to the Darkstone Empire's imperial city with a goal that aimed straight towards the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. As he spoke up to hear, Ni Yuan looked at Duan Lingtian with eyes that shone. Supposedly, the martial competition is organized by formidable powers that even transcend the Darkin dynasty's imperial kingdom. I suspect that the formidable powers that transcends the Darkin dynasty's imperial family are powers from the foreign lands. Little Tien, if you're able to rise above the rest in the competition in the Darkstone Empire's imperial city and head to the capital of the Darkin dynasty, then even if you're unable to obtain the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, you'll still be able to obtain the rewards bestowed by the Darkstone Empire's imperial family. Supposedly, even the imperial family of the various imperial kingdoms would be envious of those rewards. Ni Yuan finished speaking in one go. Powers from the foreign lands organized the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Duan Lingtian's brows raised as he said to himself, I wonder for what reason are the powers of the foreign lands doing this? Duan Lingtian believed that the powers of the foreign lands would absolutely not be bored to the point of organizing this martial competition. There was surely something hidden within this. Not only that, even if you only display your talents in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and obtain the qualifications to head to the Darkstone Empire, you'll similarly be able to obtain many rewards from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family. Ni Fen looked at Duan Lingtian, then laughed. Little Tien, His Majesty has already decided that our Crimson Sky Kingdom will send you. So long as you're able to display remarkable talent in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, our Crimson Sky Kingdom will be able to obtain the generous bestowals of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and even be able to be relieved from taxes for 10 years. All subordinate kingdoms had to pay large amounts of taxes to the greater kingdom above them. This had always been the rule of the various dynasties. The Crimson Sky Kingdom and the various kingdoms had to pay taxes to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Whereas the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and the various imperial kingdoms had to pay taxes to the Darkstone Empire instead. The Darkstone Empire and the various empires had to pay taxes to the Darkin dynasty instead. Powers from the foreign lands. Duan Lingtian's gaze flashed as the corners of his mouth held a smile. Martial competition of the 10 dynasties, 5 years from now. 485 Chapter 486, The owner of another jade sword. It can be said that the opportunity this time is a win-win opportunity for both our Crimson Sky Kingdom and you. Ni Fen's words were filled with confidence towards Duan Lingtian. He believed that with Duan Lingtian's natural talent and strength, Duan Lingtian would surely be able to display remarkable talent in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and obtain the qualification to head to the Darkstone Empire's imperial city and compete for supremacy with the young geniuses of the Darkstone Empire and the various imperial kingdoms. Once Duan Lingtian was able to continuously display remarkable talent in the Darkstone Empire, Duan Lingtian would be able to head to the capital of the Darkin dynasty and compete for the qualifications to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties with the young geniuses of the Darkin dynasty and the various empires. It could be imagined that the young experts that were able to obtain the qualifications to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties was surely the most monstrous geniuses of the various dynasties. The martial competition of the 10 dynasties was the competition between the groups of young geniuses that stood at the peak of the 10 great dynasties. At that time, it would another fierce struggle. If Duan Lingtian was able to display remarkable talent in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, then he would even have the opportunity to join the powers of the foreign lands. The words foreign lands carried extreme weight and stably suppressed the various dynasties. That martial competition of the 10 dynasties doesn't have any specific requirements. Duan Lingtian asked curiously. Supposedly, the people participating in the martial competition can't be above 40 years of age and must truly be of the younger generation. Otherwise, even if one seizes the qualification to participate in the martial competition, the person would be directly stripped of his qualification to participate. Ni Yuan spoke slowly. In other words, the young geniuses of the various dynasties that prepared for the martial competition can't be above the age of 35. After all, even if they were only 35 now, they would step into the age of 40 after 5 years. Duan Lingtian's brows raised up. Can't be above the age of 40. Actually, we don't understand this too well either, Ni Fen said with a smile. Normally speaking, those that are below 40 are uniformly called as young men, but there's many people above the age of 40 like Uncle Feng that's around the age of 50 yet in good health, and they look to be as if they were young men around the age of 30. As he spoke up to hear, Ni Fen glanced at Ni Yuan and laughed. Unlike my father. What, you little brat, you dare complain that your father is old? Ni Yuan glared angrily as he shouted in a low voice. Ni Fen instantly shrunk back when he heard this. Father, I was joking. Big brother Ni Fen. Duan Lingtian didn't agree nor disagree to what Ni Fen said. I've seen records in an ancient book, supposedly, there's a miraculous ore in the foreign lands that after being polished could become an age-measuring pearl. So long as one's hand was placed on the pearl would make a corresponding reaction and numerous strands of colored lines would appear on it. For example, a single light crimson-colored line would appear when the hand of a newborn child touched it, and it indicated that the child wasn't even 1 year old. A child that was 1 year old would have a crimson-colored line that possessed a deeper color. If it was a 2-year-old child, 2 crimson-red colored lines would appear. At 10 years old, it was instead 10 crimson-red colored lines. After that, colored lines of various colors would appear when a person of greater age touched the pearl, and it indicated various ages. Everything Duan Lingtian spoke of now was naturally not seen from some ancient book. The reason he knew this was because there were records of the age-measuring pearl in the memories of the rebirth martial emperor. The age-measuring pearl was able to measure the age of a person. Of course, the age-measuring pearl wasn't omnipotent. It was at most able to measure the true age of a person below the age of 80. But even then, it was already more than enough to measure the age of the young geniuses that participated in the martial competition. Not only was Ni Fen stunned, even Ni Yuan was stunned when they heard Duan Lingtian. Ni Yuan's ability to maintain his composure was much stronger. He was the first to recover from his shock, and he sighed. There's such a wondrous item in the world. Truly unbelievable. Cloud Continent is so big that nothing is too strange. The existence of the age-measuring pearl is nothing worth being surprised over. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled, then asked. Right, Uncle Ni. Did the ambassador of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom say when the young geniuses selected by our Crimson Sky Kingdom had to go to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom? And after we go there, what are the specifics? Ni Yuan's eyes flashed as he said, according to that ambassador, it's all right so long as you arrive at the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial City within a year. As for after you've arrived at the Imperial City, the young geniuses selected by the various kingdoms only needed to display their proof of identity and they'd be able to become a student at Dragon and Phoenix Academy. 2 years after that, the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom will hold a competition of geniuses. At that time, so long as it's a person that's able to display remarkable talent in the competition of geniuses, the person will be able to obtain the opportunity to head to the Darkstone Empire and compete with the young geniuses of the Darkstone Empire and the various imperial kingdoms. From the Imperial Kingdom to the Empire, then from the Empire to the Dynasty, after that would be the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. It can be imagined that anyone that was able to walk until the end of this would surely achieve greatness. As he finished speaking, Ni Yuan was slightly excited. But unfortunately, the martial competition of the 10 dynasties has come too swiftly. If it only arrived another 5 or 6 years later, then when the martial competition of the 10 dynasties arrived, little Tien would be able to be around the age of 33 or 34, and it wouldn't be difficult for little Tien to obtain the qualifications to participate in the martial competition and even display remarkable talent there. Ni Fen sighed. Although he was confident in Duan Lingtian, but his age was too young, after all. Perhaps Duan Lingtian would have the opportunity to head to the Empire and even Dynasty, and he would be able to compete with the young geniuses of the various Imperial Kingdom and Empires. But wanting to seize the qualifications for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties was probably greatly difficult. He didn't look favorably upon Duan Lingtian. Exactly. Ni Yuan nodded, and agreed extremely with Ni Fen's words. Only Duan Lingtian neither agreed nor disagreed. After all, the martial competition only began 5 years later. Who could be certain of what would happen in the time of 5 years? Little Tien, tell your parents after you return, don't miss this opportunity. 1 year is neither long nor short. Even if you travel with a nascent soul stage fierce beast, it would probably require half a year of time from here to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial City. Ni Yuan spoke with a serious expression. Although he didn't look favorably on Duan Lingtian being able to seize the qualification to participate in the martial competition. However, he was still extremely confident in Duan Lingtian being able to display remarkable talent amongst the group of young geniuses of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Even if Duan Lingtian was able to display remarkable talent amongst the group of young geniuses in the Darkstone Empire, he wouldn't be too surprised. So, as far as he was concerned, even if Duan Lingtian was unable to seize the qualifications to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties in the end, he would be able to obtain a great amount of benefits and rewards from the imperial family of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and the imperial family of the Darkstone Empire. He didn't wish for Duan Lingtian to miss it. Okay. Duan Lingtian nodded, then bid his farewells to Ni Yuan and Ni Fen before leaving the Divine Might Marquis estate. 5 years later, martial competition of the 10 dynasties, interesting. Duan Lingtian stretched his arms and a wisp of a smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. At the same time, his hand slightly trembled and a crystal-clear jade sword appeared in his hand. This jade sword, Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and his gaze became dreamy. He still remembered that he obtained this jade sword in the misty forest nearby Aurora City. It could also be said to be given to him by the young sect leader of Boundless Sect. At the same time, this jade sword was also the culprit that caused the Boundless Sect to be annihilated. According to what the young sect leader of the Boundless Sect said, this jade sword is the key to the Sword Monarch's treasure. Sword Monarch usually pointed towards a martial monarch that cultivated in the sword. The treasure left behind by a martial monarch would surely have many good things within. Perhaps, once Little Gold's cultivation has broken through to the Void Initiation stage, I'll be able to gather with the other few people that possess the jade swords and head over to open the Sword Monarch's treasure together. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, and the origin energy in his hand released out to fuse into the jade sword. He still remembered that the young sect leader of the Boundless Sect had warned him to break through to the Void Initiation stage before opening the Sword Monarch's treasure. Duan Lingtian could understand why the Boundless Sect's young sect leader said this. After all, a cultivation that was too low was unable to protect the jade sword. This jade sword obviously has a voice transmission inscription inscribed on it. I wonder if the other 8 jade swords have owners now. Duan Lingtian still remembered what the young sect leader of the Boundless Sect said that day. There were a total of 9 jade swords. Only by gathering the 9 jade swords could the Sword Monarch's treasure be opened. The voice transmission inscription was undoubtedly an extremely high-grade inscription, and at least, Duan Lingtian wasn't able to inscribe it now. Only an inscription master whose spiritual force had attained the void transformation stage or above was able to inscribe a voice transmission inscription. The stronger the spiritual force, the area that the voice transmission inscription was able to communicate with each other was greater. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, and the origin energy that had fused into the jade sword directly activated the voice transmission inscription. The voice transmission inscription was different from ordinary inscriptions, and it wasn't a single-use inscription. I'm able to sense the 8 other corresponding voice transmission inscriptions. I wonder if the other 8 jade swords already have owners. Duan Lingtian's brows raised. Whereas right at this moment, a sonorous laughter sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ears. Ha 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 ha, the 9th jade sword has finally appeared. Brother, your luck isn't bad. I've heard since long ago that the jade sword had fallen into the hands of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Boundless Sect's leader. After that Boundless Sect seemed to have been annihilated by a sect called the Black Fiend Sect. Since you're able to obtain that jade sword, you seem to be not simple. Brother, you're from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, right? Duan Lingtian knew clearly that the sonorous voice was communicating with him. That was the owner of another jade sword. What do you mean by this? Could it be that you're not from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom? Duan Lingtian was stunned and was slightly surprised. Exactly, I'm not from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, I'm from the Darkstone Empire. Brother, confirm a time and place, and we can contact the other 7 people to open the Sword Monarch's treasure together. How about it? The sonorous voice contained slight excitement mixed within. 486 Chapter 487, Arriving at Black Wind City again. I'm sorry, I don't intend to work together and open the Sword Monarch's treasure with all of you for now, Duan Lingtian said indifferently. His voice was transmitted through the voice transmission inscription on the jade sword. From the owner of the sonorous voice, Duan Lingtian found out that the other 8 jade swords already respectively belonged to someone. Moreover, the owners of these jade swords were mostly not from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Why, this time, when the sonorous voice sounded out once more, there wasn't happy excitement, but only bewilderment and puzzlement in his voice. I want to know the cultivation of the other 8 of you, Duan Lingtian asked. Meanwhile, the sonorous voice went silent for a moment before continuing. Looks like you aren't confident of your cultivation, brother. Actually, in the entire empire, the cultivation of the 8 of us can't be considered to be strong, and it's even to the extent that there are 3 others who are like you and come from an imperial kingdom. The strongest amongst us is at the 6th level of the Void Initiation stage and the weakest is at the 4th level of the Void Initiation stage. 4th level of the Void Initiation stage. 6th level of the Void Initiation stage. Duan Lingtian's pupils couldn't help but constrict. It looked like the strengths of the owners of the other 8 jade swords were far superior to him and Little Gold. Brother, if you're worried that we'd seize your jade sword, you can first conceal the jade sword at a place only you know of and no one else is able to find. At that time, you can first meet us, and we're willing to establish a vow with the 99 heavenly tribulation to absolutely not scheme for the jade sword in your possession or do anything that is harmful to you. The sonorous voice contained slight anxiousness, and it wished for nothing more than for Duan Lingtian to appear before him and open the Sword Monarch's treasure with him. 99 heavenly tribulation, what you said is quite a good choice, Duan Lingtian replied. Then brother, you, the owners of the sonorous voice seemed to have heard of a turn for the better in Duan Lingtian's words and was slightly excited. I'm sorry, I still refuse. Even if all of you don't seize my jade sword, and won't do anything harmful to me, but if I enter the Sword Monarch's treasure with my current cultivation, then even if I encounter any treasure, I'm afraid I'll be unable to fight with all of you for it. Moreover, who knows if there's any danger within the Sword Monarch's treasure? Duan Lingtian said indifferently, so, before my cultivation advances to the Void Initiation stage, I won't consider working together with all of you to open the Sword Monarch's treasure. I'll contact all of you again once I break through to the Void Initiation stage. Duan Lingtian's tone was resolute and decisive. After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for the owner of the sonorous voice to reply before withdrawing the origin energy that had fused with the voice transmission inscription in the jade sword, and stopped the communication with that person. No matter what, this Sword Monarch's treasure is a turning point for me. I hope that I can obtain some gains in the Sword Monarch's treasure before the martial competition of the 10 dynasties begins, so that I can become eminent in the martial competition and officially step onto the stage that is the foreign lands. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up as if he saw his own bright future. Foreign lands. His 2 fiancées were there as well. The foreign lands was the true stage for the martial artists of Cloud Continent. The experts there were numerous like the clouds and it caused one's blood to boil. Duan Lingtian anticipated it extremely. After Duan Lingtian returned home with the little gold mouse, he went to see his mother and deadbeat dad. Mother, father, I intend to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom in a few days and return to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. When they heard Duan Lingtian wanted to leave, no matter if it was Duan Rufeng or Li Ru, they both weren't surprised. After all, Duan Lingtian was a member of a sect in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom now. He'd only returned this time to visit his loved ones and would go back sooner or later. Tian, bring Kai and Fei home to see mother when you're free, said Li Ru to Duan Lingtian. Of course, Duan Lingtian nodded. Besides that, remember to bid farewell to Lan and Yao before you leave. Li Ru added. Okay, Duan Lingtian replied. In the following days, Duan Lingtian went to look for Xiao Lan and Princess Bai Yao to bid his farewells. The 2 girls were naturally extremely reluctant when Duan Lingtian wanted to leave, but they knew that Duan Lingtian would leave sooner or later. They were unable to make him stay. The goddess was inclined, yet the king was heartless. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian successively went to see Xiao Yu and Xiao Xuan. They had a meal together before he bid farewell to the 2. After that, Duan Lingtian went to the Duan clan and Paladin Academy to successively bid his farewells to the Duan clan members and the deans of Paladin Academy. Later on, Duan Lingtian went to the Divine Might Marquis estate and entered the Imperial Palace with the Divine Might Marquis to obtain the proof of recommendation that the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom distributed to the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial family from the Emperor. With this proof, Duan Lingtian could rely on it to enter the Dragon and Phoenix Academy at the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial City, and become a member of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Dragon and Phoenix Academy. A few days ago at the Divine Might Marquis estate, Duan Lingtian had heard the Divine Might Marquis mention the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. However, when he was at the Seven-Star Sword Sect, he'd never heard of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Your Majesty, this Dragon and Phoenix Academy is... Duan Lingtian looked at the Emperor with a curious expression. The Emperor said, the Dragon and Phoenix Academy is a public academy the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom specially established for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. The young geniuses recommended by the various kingdoms would enter the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Not only that, supposedly, so long as they are below the age of 35, the various great sects of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom were able to recommend their outstanding disciples to enter the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. In 2 years, the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom will select the most outstanding 5 people in the Dragon and Phoenix Academy to head to the Darkstone Empire's Imperial City and compete with the various young geniuses from the various Imperial Kingdoms and the Darkstone Empire. The Emperor finished in one go. Duan Lingtian came to a sudden understanding. No wonder he'd never heard of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. It turned out that it was prepared specially for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Commander Duan, your natural talent in the martial Dao is the strongest amongst the younger generation of our Crimson Sky Kingdom. This time, it's up to you if our Crimson Sky Kingdom is able to have 10 years of tax waived and obtain the generous gifts of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. The Emperor looked at Duan Lingtian with an expression of anticipation. I'll try my best. Duan Lingtian lightly nodded. No matter what, the Crimson Sky Kingdom was his hometown. He would try his best to help the Crimson Sky Kingdom obtain benefits. After taking the proof from the Imperial Palace, Duan Lingtian bid his farewells to Ni Yuan. Uncle Ni, I'll trouble you to help me bid farewell to Big Brother Ni. I'll make a trip home before departing right away. Be careful all along the way. Ni Yuan nodded seriously, and then he reminded him. Little Tien, with your natural talent, it isn't difficult for you to become eminent in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom 2 years from now, even if displaying remarkable talent in the Darkstone Empire isn't impossible. However, if you have the opportunity to go to the Darken Dynasty and compete for the qualification to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, then you must remember to not be rash. If you're not a match for your opponent, admit defeat as soon as possible. In a person's lifetime, one only has one life. Without your life, you don't have anything. Ni Yuan's words came from the heart. Uncle Ni, I understand. Duan Lingtian replied, and he felt warmth in his heart. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian made a trip back home and bid farewell to his mother, deadbeat dad, and his manager, Jing Ru, before leaving the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Imperial Kingdom. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian sat onto the back of the little gold mouse that had enlarged herself and soared into the sky. Hee, Big Brother Lingtian. That Divine Might Marquis told you that even if a nascent soul stage fierce beast carried you to hurry on your journey, you would need to spend 7 or 8 months to arrive at the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. He's really looking at the sky from a well. HMPH, with me carrying Big Brother Lingtian, it would at most require a month before we'll be able to arrive at the Imperial City of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. A voice that was like a young girl's sounded out in Duan Lingtian's ears, and the voice contained slight ridicule mixed within. It was precisely Little Gold's voice transmission. Duan Lingtian glared at the enormous gold mouse beneath him. You talk without putting yourself in another's shoes. You're a 3rd-level void-prying stage demon beast. Can a nascent soul stage fierce beast compare to you? Big Brother Lingtian, are we directly going to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial City, or are we first going around other places? The enormous gold mouse's pair of jade green eyes revolved ceaselessly. We're naturally going to go around other places. It's all right so long as we arrive at the Dragon and Phoenix Academy in the Imperial City of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom within a year, said Duan Lingtian as a matter of fact. Little Gold was instantly jubilant when she heard Duan Lingtian, and she slowed down her speed. They spent 10 days of time before arriving at Black Wind City. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse seemed to be extremely furious when she arrived at Black Wind City once again, and she stood on Duan Lingtian's shoulder as she bared her fangs and brandished her claws. Haha, Little Gold, I still haven't asked you, how did you end up at the Ma Clan auction house? Duan Lingtian looked at the little gold mouse and asked with a smile. He still remembered that when he left the Crimson Sky Kingdom and arrived at Black Wind City. When he first saw the little gold mouse, it was precisely at the Ma Clan auction house. At that time, the little gold mouse was an auction item. Even when he recalled it now, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but sigh. It was a half-step void stage old fellow that captured me, big brother Lingtian, I want to take revenge. The little gold mouse's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears and it contained slight rage mixed within. Is it someone from the Ma Clan? Duan Lingtian asked. No, but I remember clearly that he's from Black Wind City as well, the little gold mouse said via voice transmission. Then you can slowly go look for him later. We can stay here for 2 days, as for now, it should be time for me to properly get even with the Ma Clan. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed with a fierce light as he spoke. Ma Clan. That day, he'd bid and obtained the little gold mouse in the Ma Clan auction house, yet the Jade Magnolia Trading Company's Black Wind City branch president, Sha Guang, intended to seize the little gold mouse from him. Of course, it takes 2 hands to make a clap. Later on, it was precisely a member of the Ma Clan that colluded with Sha Guang to reveal his tracks. Originally, he'd asked for compensation from the Ma Clan and this matter had come to a conclusion. But the Ma Clan obviously didn't think like this. 487 Chapter 488, Bleeding Heart. That day, when Sha Guang's father, the vice president of the entire Jade Magnolia Trading Company, Sha Do, appeared before him, he knew that it was the Black Wind City's Ma Clan that had sold him out. If it wasn't for that, it was impossible for anyone to know that he'd killed Sha Guang. Ma Clan, since you dislike having so much money, then I'll help you properly spend it. An evil smile appeared at the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth. He still remembered that when he asked the Ma Clan to produce 10 million gold, the Ma Clan readily sent it to him that night itself. Presumably, the Ma Clan had operated in the Black Wind City for many years and possessed quite a great deal of accumulated wealth. At the gate of the Ma Clan estate, 4 Ma Clan disciples stood separately on either side like gate guardians. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the plaque on the gate of the Ma Clan estate. When he saw the exquisitely engraved words, Ma Clan, on it, he knew that he didn't come to the wrong place. Duan Lingtian took a large stride forward and directly walked towards the Ma Clan estate. Who are you? Halt, comma. At the same time that Duan Lingtian arrived at the gate, he was stopped by the 4 Ma Clan disciples as expected, and the 4 Ma Clan disciples had fierce gazes as they stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the 4 people before him then slowly opened his mouth. FK off. A loud shout that contained thick origin energy mixed within tore apart the sky as it pierced into the ears of the 4 Ma Clan disciples. Instantly, the 4 Ma Clan disciples felt a piercing pain in their eardrums, and the eardrums of the 2 of them with comparatively lower cultivation were directly broken from the shock, causing fresh blood to spray out as they emitted shrill cries. Although the other 2 didn't have such exaggerated consequences, their faces were still ghastly pale. When they saw the violet-clothed young man overbearingly taking another stride forward, they didn't dare obstruct him once more and hurriedly moved aside. At this moment, they could feel the rage that ceaselessly rose on this person. If they continued to obstruct him, perhaps the violet-clothed young man might directly attack them. This was something that they didn't doubt in the slightest. This violet-clothed young man wasn't someone they could deal with. I'll go around him and notify the patriarch. One of the Ma Clan disciples told the other 3 before entering the Ma Clan estate and heading towards the other side. After Duan Lingtian walked into the Ma Clan estate, he stopped a passing Ma Clan disciple and said indifferently, "Take me to your Ma Clan's audience hall." This Ma Clan disciple saw Duan Lingtian had extraordinary bearing and thought Duan Lingtian was a guest of their Ma Clan. He didn't dare delay and respectfully brought Duan Lingtian to outside the Ma Clan audience hall. Guest, you, the Ma Clan disciple looked at Duan Lingtian and he hadn't finished speaking when he was interrupted by Duan Lingtian. All right, go call your Ma Clan's patriarch and all those half-step void stage old goats over. Tell them that an old friend has come. Duan Lingtian swept the Ma Clan disciple with his gaze, and while the Ma Clan disciple was still stunned, he'd seemed to have transformed into a gust of wind that blew into the audience hall before bluntly sitting on the wooden armchair at the head. The Ma Clan disciple was dumbstruck when he saw this scene. That seat seems to be the head seat that only our Ma Clan's patriarch has the qualifications to sit on, right? When he thought of Duan Lingtian's words from before, his heart jerked. He dares sit on the head seat in the audience hall that belongs to the patriarch, and he dares to call the ancestors his old goats. Looks like this guest's identity isn't simple. I have to quickly report this to the patriarch and ancestors. The Ma clan disciple thought in his heart, then hastily turned around to go look for their Ma clan's patriarch and ancestors. Duan Lingtian sat on the wooden armchair in the Ma clan audience hall, and he grabbed the little gold mouse down and lightly stroked her back. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse felt comfortable to the point she let out a low cry, and her jade green eyes gradually closed. Duan Lingtian had a carefree expression and he quietly gazed at the outside of the audience hall. In the beginning, the outside of the audience hall was calm and tranquil, yet after 15 minutes, a string of footsteps sounded closer and closer. Subsequently, numerous figures appeared within Duan Lingtian's field of vision. The person in the lead was a middle-aged man in silken robes. He emitted a slight dignified expression between his brows and he possessed extraordinary bearing. 4 old men followed closely behind the middle-aged man, and there were also many other people that were obviously all the higher-ups of the Ma clan. The group of people walked into the audience hall in a formidable array. "It's you." In next to no time, the gazes of the 4 old men that followed behind the middle-aged man in the lead descended onto Duan Lingtian and their faces became grim. "Presumptuous. The seat of the patriarch isn't a place where a little kid like you can sit." An explosive shout resounded out in the audience hall as a middle-aged man that followed behind had a gaze that emitted cold lights as his figure flashed out to pounce towards Duan Lingtian, and his imposing manner shot into the sky like a rainbow. Bang! The middle-aged man slapped out his palm, causing a palm print condensed from origin energy to appear and enveloped towards Duan Lingtian. At the same time, 1,100 ancient mammoth silhouettes dashed out in tow in the sky. This cultivation of this middle-aged man was obviously at the 8th level of the nascent soul stage. Squeak squeak, right at the instant the middle-aged man slapped out with his palm, a sharp cry resounded out. In the next moment, the little gold mouse in Duan Lingtian's hand vanished. The people present only saw a gold light shoot out from Duan Lingtian's hand, and its speed was so swift that it was astonishing. Subsequently, bang, ah, an enormous bang accompanied by a shrill cry that contained pain that shot into the heart sounded out abruptly. Under the gazes of everyone present, the gold light smashed onto the middle-aged man and directly knocked the middle-aged man flying. He emitted shrill cries as he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood before fiercely descending to the ground and fainting. However, no one looked at the middle-aged man's injuries now. The gazes of everyone had descended onto the golden figure in the sky. This was a little gold mouse that stood in the sky as she looked down upon the fainted middle-aged man before turning around and transforming into a gold light to return to Duan Lingtian's hand. 4,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes. As they looked at the 4,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes that gradually dispersed in the sky after the little gold mouse left, the Ma clan members present all became pale. Subsequently, their gazes once again descended onto the hand of the violet-clothed young man that sat at the head. The little gold mouse closed her eyes in comfort and enjoyed the stroking of the violet-clothed young man, and he seemed extremely alike to a cute and harmless pet mouse. However, no one dared look at the little gold mouse as if they were looking at a pet now. They knew that this was a demon beast, a 3rd-level void-prying stage demon beast. "Everyone, long time no see." Duan Lingtian's gaze slowly descended onto the 4 old men behind the middle-aged man in the lead and he grinned, revealing his snow-white teeth. However, Duan Lingtian's bright smile caused the 4 old men's faces to go grim when they saw it. The gazes of the 4 old men descended onto Duan Lingtian and contained slight doubt and disbelief. "Exactly, she's that little gold mouse I bid for in the Ma clan auction house that day. Now that I speak about it, I still have to properly thank you Ma clan. Otherwise, the 2 of us wouldn't have the fate to meet." Duan Lingtian stroked the smooth back of the little gold mouse as he spoke slowly. From the beginning until the end, he had a calm expression that didn't contain any feelings. The bodies of the 4 old men shook and the corners of their mouths curled into a bitter expression. That little gold mouse from that day had actually transformed into a 3rd-level void-prying stage demon beast now. Was this still a gold for mouse? You're that person from that day. The middle-aged man in the lead was curious earlier about how their Ma clan would have offended a person that possessed a demon beast by his side. But now, when he heard the words of the young man, he seriously sized up the young man for a moment and had finally recognized the young man. Although it was the first time he'd seen the young man, he'd seen the portrait of the young man many times, and he had a deep impression of the young man. He would never be able to forget the incident that occurred in the Ma clan auction house a few years ago. Because of that incident, not only had a member of their Ma clan died, an entire 10 million gold was extorted from them. It was the first time their Ma clan had encountered such a humiliation. Whereas the initiator of all this was the young man that bought the infant goldfur mouse in the Ma clan auction house. In other words, the person before him now. This third-level void-prying stage demon beast is the infant goldfur mouse that was auctioned off in my Ma clan auction house that day. The heart of the middle-aged man, the Ma clan's patriarch, ceaselessly bled. If he knew earlier that this infant goldfur mouse was able to grow to such an extent in a short few years, then even if their Ma clan had to expend an even greater price, even if they had to go bankrupt, he would still consume this infant goldfur mouse internally. Even if the seller didn't allow them to consume the infant goldfur mouse internally, they would bid for it. Now, it had instead helped someone else. The affairs of the world were difficult to foretell. Who would have thought that the inconspicuous infant goldfur mouse from that day would grow to such a terrifying extent within a short few years? Demon beast. Moreover, it was a third-level void-prying stage demon beast. Looks like Patriarch Ma hasn't forgotten me. Duan Ling Tian sat on the seat at the head, and he had a calm expression as he looked at the middle-aged man. Although it was the first time he'd met the middle-aged man, Duan Ling Tian was still able to recognize him with a glance. The middle-aged man's identity was readily able to be guessed since he was able to make the 4 old goats escort him like that. He was surely the Ma clan's patriarch, without a doubt. Patriarch Ma, I actually still have to thank you for gifting me 10 million gold all those years ago. I clearly remember the Ma clan's generosity. Duan Ling Tian looked at the Ma clan's patriarch and a brilliant smile bloomed on his face. However, when this smile entered into the eyes of all the Ma clan higher-ups, it was no different than the smile of a devil. What exactly do you want? The Ma clan's patriarch gnashed his teeth. Although it was my Ma clan that was in the wrong that day, the culprit has already died after all. Not only that, my Ma clan even gave you 10 million gold for this. Besides that, you even obtained this variant goldfur mouse from my Ma clan auction house and obtained an extremely great benefit. What else do you want? As he finished speaking, the Ma clan patriarch's voice contained traces of trembling mixed within. 488 Chapter 489, Compensation for Emotional Distress. The Ma clan's patriarch looked at the little gold mouse in Duan Ling Tian's hand with a gaze that contained a fiery sheen that seemed to have transformed into flames that could burn everything. He could imagine that if this third-level void-prying stage goldfur mouse was obtained by their Ma clan, then their Ma clan would surely monopolize the entire Black Wind City. Patriarch Ma, the words you spoke in the end are slightly sour. That day, little gold was brought out to auction by your Ma clan auction house. It can only be said that your Ma clan members had eyes but failed to see, and that's why they allowed a bright pearl like her to be covered in dust. Whereas I have sharp discerning eyes and didn't stint to pay a great price to bid for her. Duan Ling Tian glanced indifferently at the Ma clan's patriarch, and he never expected that the Ma clan's patriarch would be so thick-skinned. Now, you have the nerve to say that I obtained a great benefit. Or perhaps, on the matter of little gold, you think that I've taken advantage of your Ma clan. The Ma clan's patriarch couldn't help but be flustered and exasperated when he heard Duan Ling Tian, yet he had nothing to say. After all, Duan Ling Tian wasn't wrong in the slightest. In this matter, it was indeed their Ma clan members that had eyes yet failed to see and missed a variant goldfur mouse that could change the fate of the Ma clan. Up until today, the Ma clan members still thought that the little gold mouse was only a goldfur mouse, and the only reason it grew so swiftly was because it had undergone a variation. They instead didn't know in the slightest of the little gold mouse's true identity, a jade-eyed heavenly mouse. After all, a jade-eyed heavenly mouse was a demon beast of legend in the foreign lands. Even in the foreign lands, not everyone had heard of the jade-eyed heavenly mouse. Young man, what exactly do you want? One of the old men standing behind the Ma clan patriarch took a step forwards as he spoke in a deep voice. This old man was one of the Ma clan supreme elders. That year, this young man had a void-prying stage expert following by his side, and it caused them to be exceedingly afraid. Today, although the void-prying stage expert wasn't present, there was a void-prying stage demon beast by the young man's side. Moreover, it was a third-level void-prying stage demon beast, and it caused them to be even more afraid. What I want? Duan Ling Tian glanced indifferently at the old man, and he couldn't help but laugh. It ought to be I who asks all of you this question, right? My Ma clan had already repaid everything we owe you. What do you intend to do by trespassing into my Ma clan this time? The Ma clan's patriarch asked with a deep voice. Repaid everything you owe me? Duan Ling Tian was stunned when he heard the words of the Ma clan patriarch, then he came to a sudden understanding. Patriarch Ma, what you're talking about ought to be the death of the person in charge of the Ma clan auction house at that time, Ma Chin, and the 10 million gold, right? HMPH. The Ma clan patriarch grunted coldly in approval. You're correct. Duan Lingtian nodded. Your Ma clan had indeed completely repaid everything you owed me for the incident that occurred in the Ma clan auction house. Right when all the Ma clan higher-ups heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. Duan Lingtian's voice suddenly became louder and it contained a trace of coldness and fierceness. But I didn't come to your Ma clan today for the incident from that day. That day, since I've accepted the money of your Ma clan, I naturally won't fuss about it. I came to your Ma clan because I want you to repay me for the debt you owed me later on. As he spoke up to hear, Duan Lingtian's gaze went completely cold and his face seemed to be covered in a layer of ice. Squeak squeak. The little gold mouse seemed to have noticed Duan Lingtian's rage and she stood up to bare her fangs and brandish her claws at the Ma clan higher-ups. In her hand, a spirit sword appeared out of thin air, along with the origin energy flickering on the sword in her claws. Whoosh! 6,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes gradually condensed into form above the little gold mouse. This scene caused the heartbeat of the Ma clan higher-ups who already had a guilty conscience to speed up abruptly. A demon beast has a spirit sword as well. This spirit sword assists it to amplify its strength by the strength of 2,000 ancient mammoths. It's a grade 5 spirit weapon. The Ma clan higher-ups shuddered in fear. Some of them who had comparatively weaker hearts were terrified to the point they directly sat on the ground with shivering bodies that flowed with cold sweat. Grade 5 spirit weapon. What sort of notion was that? Even if it was the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, it seemed that only the few great powers that stood at the top possessed grade 5 spirit weapons, right? You, who exactly are you? The Ma clan patriarch looked at Duan Lingtian with a ghastly pale expression that was filled with terror. Would a person that's able to give a demon beast a grade 5 spirit weapon be an ordinary person? Who I am isn't important. Duan Lingtian naturally knew what the Ma clan patriarch was thinking, and he said indifferently. I presume that all of you have recalled what you owe me, right? All of you are really capable. That matter had originally come to an end, yet all of you still didn't forget it and even drew Sha Guang's father, Sha Do, to me. Perhaps, as far as all of you were concerned, I would surely die at the hands of Sha Do, and I would forever be unable to get even with all of you, right? When Duan Lingtian finished speaking, his gaze swept past every single Ma clan higher-up one by one. Every time his gaze descended onto someone, it would cause that person to be unable to refrain from going pale. The 4 old men behind the Ma clan's patriarch had bitter smiles and an expression of helplessness on their faces. They never imagined that this young man had already found out about this matter. They originally thought that so long as Sha Do found this young man, then even if this young man knew that it was them who played tricks from behind, it would surely be impossible for the young man to come get even with them. After all, Sha Do wouldn't let the young man off. Or perhaps, Sha Do looked for this young man on a grand scale and hadn't found the young man before the young man noticed it. But no matter what, they knew that they were about to be struck with misfortune. You, what exactly do you want? A ghastly pale color started to creep up onto the Ma clan patriarch's face as he asked in a deep voice. What I want? Duan Lingtian smiled and glanced deeply at the Ma clan's patriarch. That would depend on the Ma clan's sincerity. If the sincerity isn't enough. When he spoke up to hear, Duan Lingtian stopped and glanced at the little gold mouse in his hand. Little gold, if the money they give isn't enough for you to buy meat to eat, what do you think we should do? The little gold mouse leapt up as soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking. She stood in the sky as she shook the grade 5 spirit sword in her hand, gesturing at all the Ma clan higher-ups. This caused all the Ma clan higher-ups to go white. Half an hour later, Duan Lingtian left the Ma clan estate with the little gold mouse, and a wisp of a satisfied smile appeared on his face. This time, he'd extorted an entire 100 million gold from the Ma clan. Of course, all of it was in bills. All the gold bills that the Ma clan had available had come into Duan Lingtian's possession. Little gold, I'll properly reward you today. Duan Lingtian brought the little gold mouse into a restaurant and specially ordered a table full of roast meat for the little gold mouse. The roast meat was of a great variety and it was extremely fragrant. The little gold mouse ate to the point her stomach was completely round, and she lay on the table as she burped without end. At the moment, the little gold mouse was completely round and exceedingly cute. Duan Lingtian shook his head and continued eating on his own. After Duan Lingtian finished eating, night had gradually arrived and Duan Lingtian brought along the little gold mouse to find an inn to stay at. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse cried out to Duan Lingtian. What, little gold, you intend to go look for that person that captured you that time? Duan Lingtian smiled as he said, go ahead, come back early. Squeak squeak squeak, however, although the little gold mouse nodded, she didn't have any intention of leaving. Right at this moment, the little gold mouse's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. Big brother Lingtian, let's go together, and help me get some money to buy meat while we're at it. As she finished speaking, the little gold mouse's jade green eyes flickered with a green light. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up when he heard the little gold mouse. Alright, I just hope that half-step void stage fellow isn't a person with no backing, it would be great if he's a member of the other two great clans of Blackwind City. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian left the inn with the little gold mouse. They searched for half the night before finally locking onto their target. The Huang clan. Duan Lingtian started laughing when he saw the estate that occupied an area no less than the Ma clan estate. If he wasn't wrong, this place ought to be the estate of one of the three great clans of Blackwind City, the Huang clan. Hee, big brother Lingtian, looks like that fellow isn't a person without backing. The little gold mouse's excited voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. Big brother Lingtian, you must order a table of food just for me again tomorrow. Duan Lingtian was speechless. This little gold mouse spoke as if he'd ill-treated her. Duan Lingtian and little gold trespassed into the Huang clan as they did at the Ma clan. The reaction of the Huang clan was similar to the Ma clan. However, after little gold displayed her strength at the third level of the void prying stage, all the Huang clan higher-ups were completely terrified. In the end, the half-step void stage martial artist of the Huang clan was pressured to come out as well. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse instantly emitted an enraged sharp cry when she saw this fellow. It's you. This half-step void stage martial artist of the Huang clan obviously recognized the little gold mouse as well, and for a time, it was as if he'd seen a ghost. The infant goldfur mouse that couldn't fight back against him that day actually possessed such a terrifying strength now. For a time, he felt as if he was dreaming. The facts proved that he wasn't dreaming and everything before him was real. All of you have seen it as well, this little companion of mine isn't happy. That day, this supreme elder of your Huang clan caused her to suffer. Duan Lingtian looked at all the Huang clan higher-ups and grinned as he spoke. Squeak squeak, seeming to be cooperating with Duan Lingtian, the little gold mouse emitted enraged sharp cries. Her cries contained origin energy and pierced the ears of the Huang clan higher-ups present to the point that some of the comparatively weaker people were ghastly pale and their bodies shivered. Then what do you want? The Huang clan's patriarch took a deep breath and asked. Patriarch Huang is a straightforward person as expected. Duan Lingtian grinned, and his smile contained slight evilness mixed within. How about this? I'm not the type of person that likes violence, all of you just have to slightly give my little companion some compensation for emotional distress. How about it? 489 Chapter 490, Wang Chong in danger. Compensation for emotional distress. When they heard that Duan Lingtian only wanted money, all the Huang clan higher-ups including the Huang clan's patriarch heaved a sigh of relief. As one of the three great clans that were equally famous as the Ma clan, the Huang clan's wealth naturally wasn't little. However, their expressions quickly became gloomy again. Because Duan Lingtian asked for a few tens of millions of gold the moment he opened his mouth. Isn't this a little too much? The Huang clan's patriarch looked hesitantly at Duan Lingtian. Whereas the supreme elder that captured the little gold mouse and put her up for auction in the Ma clan auction house had an expression that was ashen. After all, even the money he obtained from auctioning the little gold mouse that day was only a few million gold. This young man wanted over 10 times the money he'd obtained from selling the little gold mouse that day. The young man was simply demanding too much. Too much. Duan Lingtian smiled indifferently. Patriarch Huang, I believe that your Huang clan is still able to produce this little money, right? The Ma clan's patriarch was much more straightforward than you, he didn't say a word before giving me 100 million gold. Ma clan, 100 million gold. As soon as Duan Lingtian said this, the group of Ma clan higher-ups were dumbstruck. Patriarch Huang, I'll give you the time of 3 breaths to consider it. If you're unwilling, then if this little companion of mine does any rash things, then it would be something that can't be solved with money. Duan Lingtian's face revealed a smile that was like the devil. Squeak squeak, where the little gold mouse that stood on his shoulder shook the grade 5 spirit sword in her hand in a timely manner. It was as if she was saying to the Huang clan's patriarch, if you don't give me money, then I'll kill all of you. The corners of the Huang clan's patriarch's mouth twitched, and he could only compromise in the end. He didn't doubt Duan Lingtian's words in the slightest. If he were to delay past the time of 3 breaths, this third-level void-prying stage demon beast would surely attack them. Patriarch Huang as direct as expected. After he received the money, a brilliant smile bloomed on Duan Lingtian's face, then he glanced at the Huang clan's supreme elder. Elder, when you capture a fierce beast next time, you have to open your eyes wide and look clearly, otherwise, just you alone are probably enough to cause the Huang clan to go bankrupt. The words Duan Lingtian spoke before leaving caused the Huang clan's supreme elder to flush red. He only caught his breath after Duan Lingtian's figure vanished before his eyes, and he was angered to the point that he spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood dropped onto the ground and seemed to have transformed into a dazzling red rose that had bloomed on the ground. When Duan Lingtian walked out of the Huang clan estate, he was exceedingly happy. Now, adding on the money the Huang clan gave me, the money in my possession has already arrived at 200 million. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse cried out twice and said via voice transmission, Big Brother Lingtian, don't forget my meat. Don't worry, so long as we eat in a restaurant in the future, I'll order a table full of meat just for you. How about it? Duan Lingtian had an excellent mood, and he promised the little gold mouse. Hee, Big Brother Lingtian is the best. The little gold mouse's voice transmission was filled with excitement. Now that it was already deep into the night, Duan Lingtian and the little gold mouse were prepared to return to the inn after leaving the Huang clan estate. All along the way, there weren't many people that could be seen. Suddenly, 2 figures swiftly walked past Duan Lingtian. It was originally nothing, yet the conversation the two had in a low voice had instead drawn Duan Lingtian's attention. Fourth brother, who's that woman that's called Wang Chong? Boss Wu is actually personally going out to capture her back. Shish, softly, don't ask what you shouldn't ask. An expert with terrifying strength follows by that woman's side, and if it wasn't for the large sum of money President Han gave, Boss Wu wouldn't take advantage of that expert being in closed-door cultivation and take a risk to go capture that woman. After all, once this matter were to be noticed by that expert, we would surely die. Although the voice of the two were soft, Duan Lingtian still heard it clearly. Wang Chong. Duan Lingtian frowned. He remembered that the wife of Big Brother Zhang that he'd met in the ancient city of Everlast was called Wang Chong. An expert with terrifying strength follows by her side. They wouldn't be speaking about Big Brother Zhang, right? Duan Lingtian gasped. Big Brother Zhang was Zhang Shouyang that Duan Lingtian got acquainted with at the Eternal Jade restaurant in the ancient city of Everlast. Later on, Zhang Shouyang and Wang Chong left after sending Duan Lingtian and Li Fei back to the 7-star sword sect. I'll follow and take a look. Although he wasn't sure, Duan Lingtian still followed them. In the end, under the lead of the two people, Duan Lingtian leapt into a luxurious estate. This estate was a private estate, and the person that lived within was either wealthy or noble. President Han. Duan Lingtian hid outside the hall and heard the two of them respectfully greeting a middle-aged man at the center of the hall who wore embroidered clothes. You two are. The middle-aged man in embroidered clothes obviously didn't know these two people. President Han, who we are isn't important, what's important is that the thing you entrusted Boss Wu to do has been completed, one of the two men said with a light smile. Brother, what do you mean by this? Although the middle-aged man in embroidered clothes maintained his composure, the spiritual force Duan Lingtian stretched out was able to notice that the breathing of this middle-aged man had obviously become rapid. This person is really cautious. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. President Han, there's a woman called Wang Chong that's a guest in Boss Wu's estate. The other one of the two men spoke frankly. Really? This time, the middle-aged man completely lost his composure, and he revealed an expression of wild joy. Boss Wu has really caught that by H. Yes, the expert by that woman's side just happened to be in closed-door cultivation and Boss Wu devised a scheme to deceive her to come out of her home, and then he captured her. President Han, Boss Wu asked us to call you over, so as to avoid trouble arising from any delay, you must do it cleanly before that expert notices, said one of the two men. Haha, good, I'll follow both of you now. The middle-aged man called President Han laughed loudly as he left the hall with the two people, then left his private estate. It ought to not be sister-in-law, right? Duan Lingtian frowned. Logically speaking, Wang Chong ought to not come to the extent of incurring enmity with people of the Black Wind City. He knew of Wang Chong's character. Perhaps, it was someone with the same name, and coincidentally, this Wang Chong had an expert following by her side as well. However, for safety's sake, Duan Lingtian still followed them. If this Wang Chong really was the wife of Big Brother Zhang, his sister-in-law, then if he were to let it slip because of this, it would really be too late to regret. Duan Lingtian followed the three people and quickly arrived at an inconspicuous estate at another end of Black Wind City. This estate was extremely remote. If it wasn't for the three people leading the way, Duan Lingtian might not have been able to find this place. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian noticed that the middle-aged man in embroidered clothes followed the other two people to walk into the rear courtyard of the estate. There was an independent room in the rear courtyard, and a dog guarded outside it. Woof woof, the dog barked when it saw the middle-aged man in embroidered clothing. Moneybags, stop barking, he's one of us. The two men that led the way hurriedly pacified the dog, causing the dog to temporarily quiet down. President Han, Boss Wu is within, please go in. The two of them escorted the middle-aged man to enter the room before closing the door behind them. Duan Lingtian followed into the rear courtyard. The instant he saw the dog look over and open its mouth intending to bark, his spiritual force swept out and he used his soul skill, 1000 illusions, to build an illusion space, causing the dog to fall into deep sleep. Slap. Suddenly, a clear slapping sound resounded out from the room. Subsequently, the voice of that President Han sounded out. Wang Chong, a BH like you has fallen to such a state, you dare be complacent, you dare seize my business. Today, let me see how that person by your side will save you. Slap, 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 comma, the clear sounds of slapping ceaselessly sounded out. Han Jianen, you're despicable. You aren't my match in business, so you actually use such underhanded methods to deal with me. To think that you're the president of the Center Valley Trading Company's branch, you've truly lose face of the Center Valley Trading Company. A voice that was melodious and pleasant to the ear sounded out in a timely manner, and the emotions of the voice couldn't be discerned from it. HMPH. So what if I use these methods? What can I do if I, Han Jianen, have many friends? This brother Wu Ji is a good friend of mine, so what if the person by your side is strong? Didn't you fall into the hands of brother Wu Ji in the end? Han Jianen grunted coldly and spoke with an arrogant tone. I'll kill you today. A BH like you isn't worthy of fighting me. Sister-in-law. When Duan Lingtian heard the woman's voice, he felt it to be slightly familiar, and after a short moment, he finally recalled it. That voice was precisely the voice of Wang Chong, the wife of his big brother Zhang Shouyang. Stay your hand. Duan Lingtian didn't dare hesitate and shouted out explosively as he knocked open the door like a cannonball and charged into the room. This was an independent torture room. At the center of the torture room was a stake, and a woman was tied on it. Although the woman's face was in a sorry state, yet she didn't lower her head from the beginning until the end, and the unyielding expression on her face even made men feel ashamed of their inferiority. It was precisely Wang Chong, the wife of Zhang Shouyang. Sister-in-law. Duan Lingtian's face went gloomy when he saw the numerous bruises on the woman's face and he shouted coldly. Little Gold. Instantly, Little Gold who was on Duan Lingtian's shoulder transformed into a gold light that shot out and bit off the string that tied Wang Chong, allowing Wang Chong to regain her freedom. Brother Lingtian. Wang Chong originally thought that a great calamity was upon her, yet suddenly, a person had unexpectedly appeared to save her, and the person that saved her was an acquaintance of hers. Kid, who are you? Didn't you find out who I, Blood Leopard, Wu Ji, am? Within the territory of the Black Wind City, even the three great clans don't dare to offend me lightly. Since you've come here today, then don't leave. A robust middle-aged man with half his arm bare and had a blood leopard tattoo on it, had killing intent on his face as he spoke to Duan Lingtian. Han Jianen, who wore embroidered clothes, looked at Duan Lingtian with a mocking expression. Is that so? Duan Lingtian sneered. A half-step void stage martial artist dared brag before him. Blood leopard, I'll make you become a dead leopard today. Right at this moment, a hoarse voice that was filled with violent temper instantly swept into the room from outside, and it filled the entire room. The voice contained extreme rage mixed within. 490 Chapter 491, Zhang Shouyang on a rampage. Practically the instant that the voice entered the room, Duan Lingtian felt a wave of trembling come from the ground, a trembling that shook in a higher and higher frequency, and it was like an earthquake. What a strong earth concept! The instant that Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted and he revealed an astonished expression, a tall figure had appeared before him. This was a young man in grey clothes who had an extremely gloomy expression, his eyes flickering with frightful cold lights, and atop his body, there seemed to be strands of earth and yellow glows flashing about as they emitted an exceedingly strange aura. Brother Yang, Wang Chong revealed a wisp of an apologetic expression when she saw the grey-clothed young man appear. She was careless and had caused her husband to be worried. Big Brother Zhang, the person that appeared before Duan Lingtian was precisely Zhang Shouyang, who he'd gotten acquainted with that day at the ancient city of Everlast, the young man with extraordinary strength. He was only a little over 30, yet his cultivation had already broken through to the second level of the void initiation stage, and he'd even comprehended third-level earth concept. Moreover, he had a wine guard that was a grade 5 spirit weapon in his possession. You, how did you find this place? No, impossible. Wu Ji seemed as if he'd seen a ghost when he saw Zhang Shouyang, and his countenance was pale to the extreme. As far as he was concerned, Zhang Shouyang was an existence at the void prying stage or above and wasn't someone he could go against. This time, he dared capture Wang Chong because he was certain that Zhang Shouyang was in closed-door cultivation, and he was confident in concealing Wang Chong before Zhang Shouyang was alarmed. But now, everything seemed to have not gone according to the plan in his heart. Where exactly did the mistake occur? He couldn't understand no matter how he racked his brains. It's you. Han Jian'an's body shivered when he saw Zhang Shouyang. His eyes were filled with extreme terror as if Zhang Shouyang was the judge that controlled life and death and could decide his life or death at any time and place. Han Jian'an, Zhang Shouyang's face sank and seemed to be covered in a layer of ice. I warned you the last time to use business methods to settle things between trading companies. Looks like you didn't absorb the lesson. If I knew you were so bold, I shouldn't have listened to my wife the other time and spared you, I should have killed you that day. No, don't kill me, don't kill me. Han Jian'an was terrified to the point he shivered, and then fell on the floor and was in an extremely sorry state. In next to no time, the foul smell of urine soared into the sky. It was Han Jian'an who was terrified to the point he peed himself, and peed all over the ground. This scene caused Duan Lingtian to be speechless. This Hang Jian'an was a branch president of a trading company after all, yet he was actually so useless. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse stood on Duan Lingtian's shoulder and cried out twice, and her jade-green eyes contained a slight laughing expression mixed within. It was as if she was laughing at Han Jian'an. I don't want to dirty my hands by killing you. Zhang Shouyang glanced at Han Jian'an in disgust, then he raised his right leg and slowly stomped it down. Bang! Origin energy skyrocketed when Zhang Shouyang's leg descended, and the earth and yellow energy on it surged to fuse into the ground. In the next moment, kacha, 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 comma, ear-piercing sounds of bones breaking sounded out successively. The sounds were accompanied by Han Jian'an's successive screams of pain, shrill cries from extreme pain. Han Jian'an's shrill cries continued for an entire 15 minutes before stopping. Whereas Han Jian'an's body that ceaselessly vibrated had finally stopped moving and crashed onto the ground to become a pool of mush. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted when he saw this. This achieves the same results as my quake energy but by different methods. However, Big Brother Zhang used his origin energy combined with his earth concept to shatter all the bones in Han Jian'an's body in one go. Big Brother Zhang's earth concept. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian looked at the sky above Zhang Shouyang. There were 11 ancient horned dragon silhouettes vaguely noticeable there, and the enormous silhouettes had been forcefully compressed together by the narrow little room. The strength of 11 ancient horned dragons. Duan Lingtian was astonished. When he carefully inspected it, he noticed that amongst the 11 ancient horned dragon silhouettes, there was a distance between 6 of them and another 5 of them, they were separate. 4th level void initiation stage. 5th level earth concept, Duan Lingtian gasped. He'd never imagined that when he met Zhang Shouyang once more, he would actually possess such a terrifying strength. He still remembered that when he first got acquainted with Zhang Shouyang, he was only a 2nd level void initiation stage martial artist that had only comprehended the 3rd level earth concept. But even then, he was still shocked by Zhang Shouyang's natural talent in the martial Dao and comprehension ability. After all, Zhang Shouyang was only a little over 30. Now, the strength Zhang Shouyang displayed when obliterating Han Jian'an in rage had shocked Duan Lingtian once again. Han Jian and had been tortured for an entire 15 minutes by Zhang Shouyang's formidable origin energy combined with his 5th level earth concept before dying, and he died awfully tragically. Initiation, Void Initiation Stage. The nearby Wu Ji and the 2 people that brought Han Jian and over had finally recovered from their shock, and their bodies started to tremble intensely as they looked at the 11 ancient horned dragon silhouettes in the sky. Ancient horned dragon silhouettes. They'd only heard of it, but had never seen it. If it was at an ordinary time, they would perhaps feel that their horizons were broadened when seeing an ancient horned dragon silhouette with their own 2 eyes. But at this moment, they didn't have thoughts like this. When they saw Zhang Shouyang look over, the 2 people by Wu Ji's side fell down to kneel on the floor, and they were terrified to the extreme as they said with trembling voices, "Lord, spare my life. It has nothing to do with me, nothing to do with me." Presently, they didn't even dare have the thought of fleeing. What a joke! Before a person that could exert the strength of 11 ancient horned dragons without even using a spirit weapon, it would be impossible for them to flee even if they had 10 legs. Now, they only hoped that this expert could show mercy and allow them to live. Zhang Shouyang didn't even spare a glance at these 2, his gaze shot directly onto Wu Ji, and he said with a low voice, "Wu Ji. You're really bold, you even dared to touch my woman." HMPH. Wu Ji took a deep breath. Perhaps he knew that he was faced with imminent danger and it was impossible for him to obtain Zhang Shouyang's forgiveness, so he completely let go and feared nothing. "I, Wu Ji, have swept through everything unobstructed in my entire life, and my life can be said to have not been lived in vain as I'm able to die in the hands of a void initiation stage expert today. Since you want to die, then I'll fulfill your wish." Zhang Shouyang's voice was cold and indifferent, as if it sounded out from an icy pit, and it contained extreme icy coldness mixed within. Subsequently, Zhang Shouyang raised his leg once again before fiercely stomping down. Bang! The terrifying origin energy roared and swept out accompanied by the 5th level earth concept to surge towards Wu Ji. Instantly, Wu Ji's body shook, his face flushed red, and he emitted a muffled grunt from enduring the pain. Right at this moment, a wave of bone-cracking sounds resounded out. The sounds were clear and ear-piercing, and it caused one to feel a chill run down one's spine. Ah! Although Wu Ji was unyielding, when his legs were shattered, he couldn't help but emit a shrill cry, and his face became white like a sheet. Bang! After the bones in his legs were shook to powder, Wu Ji's lowered body transformed into a pool of mush with a bang, and his upper body pressed itself onto this pool of mush. His expression was warped and savage, and he was in extreme pain. Zhang Shouyang seemed to intend to torture Wu Ji, and he intentionally withdrew his origin energy and 5th level earth concept at this moment. Right at this moment, Wu Ji's eyes sprang wide open and a strand of resolution flashed within it. Subsequently, he raised his hand and a spirit sword appeared within his hand. Swish! Wu Ji didn't attack anyone but instead held the spirit sword to swipe towards his own neck as he wanted to commit suicide and free himself. Want to die? It isn't that easy. Zhang Shouyang's indifferent voice sounded out, and the spirit sword in Wu Ji's hand was directly smashed flying by a strong force and it dropped to the ground with a clang. On Wu Ji's savage and warped face was an extremely unsightly expression. Subsequently, Zhang Shouyang raised his hand, his origin energy twined around his 5th level earth concept and held out to shatter Wu Ji's hands before Wu Ji could raise his hand and commit suicide by shattering his own skull. Ah! Wu Ji's shrill cry sounded out once more, and it was incomparably miserable and caused chills to run down one's spine. At this moment, amongst the people present, only Duan Lingtian and the little gold mouse had calm expressions and didn't experience any change in their expressions. Wang Chong's face was deathly pale, as she'd never seen such a scene before. As for the 2 people that knelt on the ground, they were terrified to the point they followed in Han Jian's footsteps and wet their pants. For a time, the entire room was filled with the foul smell of urine. Just like K'er and Little Fei are my reverse scales, sister-in-law is similarly Big Brother Zhang's reverse scale. Duan Lingtian was able to understand Zhang Shouyang's current feelings. If Wang Chong were to be changed to K'er or Little Fei, then Han Jian and Wu Ji would only be in even more miserable states than they were now. As the king of mercenaries in his previous life, Duan Lingtian's method of torture were far from something Zhang Shouyang was able to compare to. Brother Yang, kill him. In the end, Wang Chong couldn't bear it any longer. When he heard Wang Chong, Zhang Shouyang's cruel expression emitted a rare wisp of gentleness, then his gaze went cold as he raised his hand and condensed a palm print that crashed downwards. You're lucky. Accompanied by Zhang Shouyang's cold and indifferent words, Wu Ji's head was slapped open by him, and the brain juices that sprayed out splattered all over the faces of the two that knelt nearby. The two of them instantly cried out loudly, "Lord, spare us! We only run errands, Lord, spare us, spare us!" However, how could Zhang Shouyang, who was exceedingly enraged, let them off? Along with Zhang Shouyang's hand raising and falling, the two people that knelt on the floor followed in the footsteps of Han Jian and Wu Ji, dead. "Chong, are you all right?" Zhang Shouyang's figure flashed to Wang Chong's side before asking with a light voice. Zhang Shouyang, who was like a malefic existence earlier, fully displayed tender and softness like water now. Compared to before, he was simply like another person. "I'm fine." Wang Chong shook her head, then she looked at Duan Lingtian. "Fortunately, Brother Lingtian arrived in time. Otherwise, I would have probably died under Han Jian's hand before Brother Yang arrived." Earlier, it was precisely because Duan Lingtian appeared in time that he'd bought Zhang Shouyang some time. Otherwise, Han Jian would have succeeded long ago and killed Wang Chong. "Brother Lingtian, thank you." Zhang Shouyang looked at Duan Lingtian with a grateful expression. The most important person to him in this world was undoubtedly his wife, Wang Chong. When he recalled the scene that occurred earlier, he was once again scared to the point he broke out in cold sweat. 491 Chapter 492, Time flying by. "Big brother Zhang, you're too kind." Duan Lingtian smiled lightly, then asked curiously. "Big brother Zhang, why are you and sister-in-law in Black Wind City? Besides that, how did sister-in-law contract enmity with a despicable person like Han Jian? Let's speak after we leave." Zhang Shouyang glanced at the 3 puddles of piss on the floor and frowned, then his frown eased up as he looked at Duan Lingtian. "All right." Duan Lingtian and the little gold mouse left with Zhang Shouyang and Wang Chong, then he followed them to return to the large courtyard they stayed in. "President." The 2 middle-aged men that guarded at the entrance bowed respectfully to Wang Chong. Wang Chong nodded lightly. "President." Duan Lingtian's brows raised and he was slightly surprised. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian and the little gold mouse followed behind Zhang Shouyang and Wang Chong to enter the spacious courtyard. Within the courtyard was a spacious room that was obviously the residence of Zhang Shouyang and his wife. All along the way, the servants that they occasionally encountered would respectfully address Wang Chong as president. Duan Lingtian, Zhang Shouyang, and Wang Chong sat around the stone table in the spacious courtyard. "Big brother Zhang, why did those people from before address sister-in-law as president? Could it be that sister-in-law joined a trading company of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, and she has become the person in charge of the trading company in Black Wind City?" Duan Lingtian guessed. Zhang Shouyang said with a smile, "Brother Lingtian, you're really smart, you guessed it right away." "Exactly, Chong is the person in charge of the Floating Cloud Trading Company's branch in Black Wind City." When he spoke up to hear, Zhang Shouyang stopped momentarily before continuing. "Since Chong became the person in charge of the Floating Cloud Trading Company's branch in Black Wind City, Han Jian was completely suppressed by Chong, so, he's hated Chong extremely since the beginning. The last time, he'd already sent people to look for trouble with us and they were thrown away by me, yet I never imagined that he was so bold as to dare collude with others to capture Chong." Duan Lingtian came to a sudden understanding. "So that's what happened, sister-in-law suppressed Han Jian in every aspect. I presume she had great natural talent and ability in business." As he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian looked at Wang Chong in slight surprise. "Brother Lingtian, there's something you don't know. The clan Chong is from established themselves by business. Chong followed my father-in-law around since she was young and has learned much in the Tao of business. Now, she has a place to use her abilities." As Zhang Shouyang spoke, he looked at Wang Chong with tender affection. "So that's how it is." Duan Lingtian nodded. "Right, brother Lingtian, why are you in Black Wind City?" "I heard that the 7-Star Sword sect." Zhang Shouyang looked at Duan Lingtian and was slightly hesitant to speak. Only now did he recall that he'd heard some time ago about the news of the 7-Star Sword sect's annihilation. At that time, he and Wang Chong broke out in cold sweat for Duan Lingtian and Li Fei, who were at the 7-Star Sword sect. "Right, the 7-Star Sword sect doesn't exist anymore." Duan Lingtian nodded. "How about my little sister Fei? How is she?" Wang Chong reacted after being reminded by Zhang Shouyang, and she asked with a concerned expression. To her, she didn't care about the lives of the other people in the 7-Star Sword sect. She only cared about Duan Lingtian and Li Fei, who she was well acquainted with. Duan Lingtian was safe and sound now, so she couldn't help but be worried about Li Fei's safety. Don't worry, sister-in-law, little Fei is fine. At that time, she just happened to not be at the 7-star sword sect. Duan Lingtian forced out a smile. When he heard Zhang Shouyang mention the 7-star sword sect now, it caused him to be unable to refrain from recalling the scene of the 7-star sword sect being annihilated that day. Those numerous scenes were something he couldn't forget in his entire lifetime. Brother Lingtian, did you come to Black Wind City for something? Zhang Shouyang noticed Duan Lingtian's current expression and guessed Duan Lingtian's thoughts, so he hurriedly changed the conversation's topic. No, I'm just passing through. Duan Lingtian said with a smile. Brother Lingtian, what plans do you have for the future? Wang Chong asked Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's eyes squinted when he heard this and said slowly, I plan to go around in this year and wander from place to place for some time. After a year, I must hurry to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial City to enter the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Dragon and Phoenix Academy? Zhang Shouyang and Wang Chong were stunned when they heard Duan Lingtian, as they'd obviously never heard of any Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Brother Lingtian, this Dragon and Phoenix Academy is? Zhang Shouyang asked curiously. It's an academy the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family established for the sake of the selecting geniuses for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Most of the young geniuses in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom will gather there 1 year from now, then undergo a selection 2 years later to choose the strongest few that will head to the Darkstone Empire's Imperial City to participate in the next round of selection, Duan Lingtian said slowly. Martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Zhang Shouyang and Wang Chong looked at Duan Lingtian with a bewildered expression. Duan Lingtian wasn't the least bit surprised that they didn't know about the martial competition. Presently, this matter probably hadn't completely spread out yet. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian introduced in detail the martial competition of the 10 dynasties to Zhang Shouyang and Wang Chong. He noticed that Zhang Shouyang's gaze lit up many times. Obviously, Zhang Shouyang was extremely interested in the martial competition. Big brother Zhang, with your age, you completely satisfy the participation conditions of the martial competition. Moreover, with your natural talent and strength, obtaining the qualifications to participate and even standing out in the martial competition isn't a difficult matter. Duan Lingtian was filled with confidence towards Zhang Shouyang's strength. Currently, Zhang Shouyang was already a 4th-level Void Initiation stage martial artist that had even comprehended 5th-level Earth concept. With Zhang Shouyang's natural talent, his strength would surely be even stronger after 5 years. Even though he didn't know Zhang Shouyang's background, he was vaguely able to guess that the clan Zhang Shouyang mentioned in the past was probably a clan in the Darken Dynasty. Perhaps, only a clan in the Darken Dynasty was able to foster an extraordinary genius in the martial Dao like Zhang Shouyang. Zhang Shouyang nodded, then glanced at Wang Chong before saying, let fate decide. Obviously, he was taking Wang Chong into consideration. Duan Lingtian noticed as well and didn't say anything else, then bid his farewell. Big brother Zhang, sister-in-law, I'm leaving Black Wind City at dawn tomorrow, goodbye. Duan Lingtian stood up as he spoke. Zhang Shouyang and Wang Chong nodded and sent Duan Lingtian off with their gazes. After Duan Lingtian left, the atmosphere between Zhang Shouyang and Wang Chong became slightly quiet. After a short while, Wang Chong said, Brother Yang, this is a good opportunity for you. I know that you've always been attracted to the mysterious and unfathomable foreign lands. This time, you've finally obtained an opportunity, and you must not miss it. Zhang Shouyang sighed. That what about you? I won't separate with you no matter what. Wang Chong said with a smile, I'll always accompany you by your side. Zhang Shouyang's body trembled slightly when he heard this, then he nodded. There's no rush, there's still another 4 years of time anyway. If Duan Lingtian heard Zhang Shouyang's words now, he would surely be 100% confirmed of Zhang Shouyang's background. 4 years. The day the martial competition of the 10 dynasties started was 5 years from now. Whereas 4 years from now was precisely the day all the young geniuses of the Darken Dynasty competed with the young geniuses of the various empires, imperial kingdoms, and kingdoms subordinate to the Darken Dynasty. Obviously, Zhang Shouyang was waiting for the young geniuses of the Darken Dynasty to compete. At that time, he would directly compete for the qualification to participate in the martial competition. After Duan Lingtian left the floating cloud trading company with the little gold mouse, he returned to the inn. At dawn the next day, he woke up naturally from his sleep, then brought along the little gold mouse to have a good meal in a restaurant before leaving Blackwind City. After leaving Blackwind City, Duan Lingtian headed east. All along the way, he cultivated as he gained experience. If there was no need, he would prohibit the little gold mouse from helping. Under his hard work, his returns were extremely great. Time flew by. 3 months later, Duan Lingtian successfully broke through to the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. 8 months later, Duan Lingtian successfully broke through to the half-step void stage. 11 months later, Duan Lingtian's cultivation reached the peak of the half-step void stage and was only a step away from the void prying stage. At the peak of a precipitous mountain that wasn't far from the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial city, a violet-colored figure sat cross-legged there. This was a violet-clothed young man with a tall figure. He had sword-shaped brows and starry eyes, and he was extraordinary and handsome with a graceful bearing. Presently, strands of white-colored origin energy occasionally raged out from the violet-clothed young man's body, and within the origin energy was strands of faint azure-colored energy that flickered with an exceedingly strange aura. Squeak squeak, whereas on the shoulder of the violet-clothed young man, a fluffy little gold mouse was looking around at the surroundings, seeming to be on alert as she fiddled with a spirit sword in her hand. Suddenly, the violet-clothed young man woke up. It's almost time. The violet-clothed young man opened his eyes that were like dazzling stars, and the corners of his mouth curled into a heartfelt smile. So long as I consume 1 drop of Monkey King wine, it will be sufficient to allow me to directly break through to the void prying stage. I've cultivated for many days and have finally accumulated my origin energy to the limit. This violet-clothed young man was precisely Duan Lingtian who'd left the Blackwind City 11 months ago. During this 11 months of time, he'd relied on his peerless and monstrous natural talent to obtain great gains. Of course, it was mostly gains in cultivation. Presently, his cultivation had already increased to the limit of the half-step void stage and was already halfway into the void prying stage. He was only a strand away from being able to smoothly break through. However, even if it was only a strand, if he didn't have the assistance of external forces, it would be difficult for him to break through in a short amount of time. Just like the group of half-step void stage martial artists in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, there were no lack of existences that were halfway into the void prying stage, but because of the lack of this final strand, they might not be fated to advance to the void prying stage for their entire lifetime. But Duan Lingtian instead didn't have to worry. Although with his natural talent, even if he relied on his own hard work, he would be able to smoothly break through to the void prying stage sooner or later. But he had a shortcut to take now and he naturally wouldn't miss it. Monkey King wine. With a raise of his hand, Duan Lingtian withdrew a drop of Monkey King wine. The Monkey King wine was precisely obtained by him in the Crosscut mountain range that was outside the Southern Champion Kingdom's southern barbaric city, and it was given to him by the great Monkey King of the Stone Monkeys. The Monkey King wine possessed the medicinal strength of a void advancement pill, yet didn't have the side effects of the void advancement pill. It was a type of rare treasure. 492 Chapter 493, 5th form, lightning worm form. Squeak squeak, Duan Lingtian had just withdrawn the Monkey King wine when the little gold mouse that stood on his shoulder cried out in excitement. Obviously, she was filled with interest towards the Monkey King wine. Big brother Lingtian, what wine is this? Only the fragrance of the wine has caused the origin energy in my body to become restless. The little gold mouse looked with eager eyes at the drop of Monkey King wine in Duan Lingtian's hand as she asked via voice transmission. You little fellow, open your mouth. Duan Lingtian shook his head and directly shot the drop of Monkey King wine into the little gold mouse's mouth with a raise of his hand. Instantly, she little gold mouse shuddered and lay on Duan Lingtian's shoulder before closing her jade green eyes and starting to cultivate. She was absorbing the medicinal strength of the Monkey King wine. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled when he saw the little gold mouse immersed in cultivating, and he withdrew another drop of Monkey King wine before opening his mouth and swallowing it. Instantly, the overbearing medicinal strength of the Monkey King wine started to rage within Duan Lingtian's body, desiring to strengthen Duan Lingtian's origin energy. Unfortunately, Duan Lingtian's origin energy had already arrived at the limit of the half-step void stage. Now, it had even been accumulated by Duan Lingtian to the limit. So, at the same time that the medicinal strength of the Monkey King wine was strengthening Duan Lingtian's origin energy, it was urging the transformation of the origin energy within Duan Lingtian's body to a certain extent. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Lightning Worm Form. The lightning worm form was the 5th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, and it was the mental cultivation method that corresponded to the void-prying stage. After Duan Lingtian's cultivation broke through to the half-step void stage, his 4th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, the windworm form, had already been cultivated to the limit. If he wanted to advance further, then he must cultivate the next portion of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, the 5th form, the lightning worm form. Along with Duan Lingtian circulating the mental cultivation method of the lightning worm form, the origin energy in his body started vibrating intensely, and it was even to the extent that it showed traces of collapsing. Of course, it wasn't really collapsing. Just like the saying, a phoenix achieves rebirth and gains new life, Duan Lingtian's origin energy was undergoing a similar transformation. Duan Lingtian was immersed in his cultivation, and the mental cultivation method of the lightning worm form ceaselessly circulated. He didn't know how long had passed, it was like an instant, yet also like a few years. Finally, the origin energy in his body ceaselessly vibrated, and under the urging of the medicinal strength of the Monkey King wine in the end, his origin energy underwent a qualitative transformation. The origin energy that had undergone a qualitative transformation flowed continuously into Duan Lingtian's dantian. Whereas within Duan Lingtian's dantian, the nascent soul condensed from origin energy suddenly expanded, and at the same time it became slightly illusory. Void-prying stage. When he saw the nascent soul become big and illusory, Duan Lingtian knew that he'd broken through to the void-prying stage. The void-prying stage was the first stage in the void stage, and it was considered as an introductory stage. In the 4 stages within the void stage, there was a chasm that was difficult to surmount between every stage, and the difference in strength was like the difference between heaven and earth. For example, a 9th-level void-prying stage martial artist was able to exert the strength of 1 ancient horned dragon and 2,000 ancient mammoths by only relying on origin energy. Whereas a 1st-level void initiation stage martial artist was able to exert the strength of 2 ancient horned dragons by only relying on origin energy. The difference between the two was the strength of 8,000 ancient mammoths. Of course, the higher the stage, the bigger the gap. I've finally broken through. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and slowly opened his eyes, and a bright light that was like a flashing meteor flashed within his eye. What formidable strength! Duan Lingtian lightly clenched his fist, and when his origin energy leapt about, he was able to feel the surging strength contained within. Whoosh! Above Duan Lingtian, 2011 ancient mammoth silhouettes slowly condensed into form. An ordinary 1st-level void-prying stage martial artist possessed a strength comparable to 2,000 ancient mammoths when only utilizing origin energy. Whereas Duan Lingtian instead possessed an extra strength of 11 ancient mammoths when compared to a martial artist with a similar cultivation. This was the special benefit the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique gifted him in the past. However, along with the increase in his strength, the effect of this special benefit had become smaller and smaller. After all, before battles that utilized the strength of over 1,000 ancient mammoths at every turn, the strength of 11 ancient mammoths seemed to be insignificant. My spiritual force. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian started to check his spiritual force. In the end, Duan Lingtian noticed helplessly that his spiritual force actually didn't advance in the slightest. It was still at the 1st level of the void-prying stage as before. It's waiting for my cultivation to synchronize with it. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly, as he'd originally thought that along with his cultivation breaking through to the void-prying stage, his spiritual force would break through as well. Unexpectedly, his spiritual force had instead didn't move at all. 1 year ago, when he was only a 6th-level nascent soul stage martial artist, his spiritual force's level was at the 1st level of the void-prying stage. Now, he'd broken through to the 1st level of the void-prying stage, and his spiritual force was still at the 1st level of the void-prying stage. Looks like the spiritual force that was increased from consuming spirit fruits that increased spiritual force doesn't advance along with the cultivation and advances stably. In the end, Duan Lingtian could only wildly guess himself. After all, he was facing this condition right now. Never mind, even if my spiritual force hasn't advanced, my cultivation has advanced to the 1st level of the void-prying stage after all, and it can be considered to be a good thing. Perhaps I'm still too greedy. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian relaxed his mind and didn't fuss about it any longer. Presently, my spiritual force is synchronized to my cultivation. In the future, so long as my cultivation increases, then my spiritual force will be able to increase correspondingly. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, and he wanted to continue to set out towards a higher level of cultivation. But he knew that he'd only just broken through to the first level of the void-prying stage now, and his foundation wasn't stable, let alone charging to a higher level of cultivation. 6-9 Heavenly Tribulation, it has come so quickly. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian felt his heart palpitate for no reason, and a thought suddenly emerged within his mind. This was the indication of the 6-9 Heavenly Tribulation. Every human or demon beast that had just broken through to the void-prying stage would have to experience this moment. Duan Lingtian, who'd merged with the lifetime worth of memories of the rebirth martial emperor, wasn't surprised by this. Around 10 days, during this period of time, I have to prepare properly to greet the baptism of the 6-9 Heavenly Tribulation, my tempest point is relying on it. Duan Lingtian suddenly stood up, and his fierce gaze shot into the distance. Along with the dispersing of the clouds and mist, an enormous city that stood in the distance appeared before Duan Lingtian's eyes, and it was like a demon beast that was in a deep slumber for a long time and would awaken at any moment. That place was the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial City. There's still some time, and it's just nice enough for me to overcome the 6-9 Heavenly Tribulation before heading to the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Duan Lingtian decided in his heart. After a short moment, Duan Lingtian's figure abruptly flashed out into the distance. Whirlwind. In this instant, his entire body seemed to have transformed into a swift gale that swept the clouds and mist on the peak of the mountain to the point they roiled. Swoosh. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian pointed out his finger with the life of his hand. The origin energy on his finger was condensed and flickered with strands of azure-colored energy, and it contained a shocking might. Swish. In next to no time, a milky white beam of light shot out from the tip of the finger Duan Lingtian pointed out. The surroundings of the beam of light was coiled by azure-colored energy, and it has like azure-colored little snakes that shot out along with the white beam of light. Bang! The white-colored beam of light shot onto an enormous rock at the side of the peak, and the azure-colored little snake swept out, causing the enormous rock to shatter, and fragments of rocks shot out as stone dust suffused the air. Presently, I've mastered wind force, yet have no knowledge of lightning force. This tempest point hasn't even stepped into the initial stage. However, the tempest point is a high-grade earth rank martial skill after all, and even if it didn't step into the initial stage, once wind force is integrated into it, its might would be far from something the dragon's finishing touch was able to compare to. Duan Lingtian's eyes suddenly lit up. The Tempest Point was a high-grade Earth rank martial skill, and it was a martial skill that came along with the fifth form of the Nine Dragons' War Sovereign technique, the Lightning Worm form. It stressed upon wind force and lightning force supplementing each other, and using that to execute a formidable attack. Gods and ghosts wailed before the Tempest Point. This was what the Rebirth Martial Emperor annotated on the Tempest Point. Wind is adept at speed and its attack is fierce and swift. Even though the speed of lightning is inferior to wind, it's only a slight difference. Moreover, the explosive force of lightning is for superior to wind. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. It could be easily imagined that a martial skill that used wind and lightning to supplement each other would surely have an extremely shocking might. Presently, I can be considered to have started to comprehend the half-step advanced wind force, whereas I haven't comprehended lightning force in the slightest. I can only hope that I can use the energy of the tribulation lightning during the 6-9 heavenly tribulation to comprehend lightning force. When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian glanced at the little gold mouse that was still cultivating on his shoulder. He still remembered that during the time the little gold mouse overcame her 6-9 heavenly tribulation, the 6th tribulation lightning was directly swallowed by her. Not only that, she even relied on the energy of the tribulation lightning to successfully comprehend lightning force. Moreover, it wasn't an ordinary lightning force, but half-step advanced lightning force. Whereas now, the little gold mouse had relied on her natural talent as a jade-eyed heavenly mouse to perfectly comprehend advanced lightning force, and in the comprehension of lightning force, she could be considered to have stepped into the perfection stage. Of course, after advanced lightning force, there was still lightning concept. That was something the little gold mouse needed to draw support from the advanced lightning force to comprehend. According to the memories of the Rebirth Martial Emperor and the records of the Nine Dragons' War Sovereign technique, when the 6-9 heavenly tribulation arrives, I don't have to swallow the tribulation lightning like little gold. Of course, even if I want to swallow it, I don't have the ability. Duan Lingtian could imagine that if he dared to learn from little gold and open his mouth to swallow the tribulation lightning, then the one that would suffer would definitely be him. Not everyone was able to swallow tribulation lightning. Presently, I've comprehended half-step advanced wind force and my whirlwind can be considered to have officially stepped into the mastery stage. Once I comprehend advanced wind force, then I would be considered to have cultivated whirlwind to the perfection stage. As Duan Lingtian thought, his figure flashed out like a gale that ceaselessly swept by. For a time, dust suffused the peak of the mountain, and all the clouds and mist on the peak had dispersed. 9 days later, it has finally come. Duan Lingtian raised his head to look at the horizon. The clouds and mist in the horizon were ceaselessly being compressed, and in the end, it transformed into a whirlpool that revolved without end. The 6-9 heavenly tribulation was about to arrive. 493 Chapter 494, Tempest Point. At the center of the whirlpool that was formed from the compression of the clouds and mist that covered the sky, a ball of dark clouds was ceaselessly roiling and brewing. Hiss, 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 violet-colored lightning and thunder endlessly raged within it, seeming like numerous little snakes that danced about, dazzling and resplendent. However, Duan Lingtian currently didn't have the mood to take notice of all this. Whirlwind. Duan Lingtian's figure flashed, and he seemed to have transformed into a gust of wind that blew towards the horizon. Duan Lingtian stepped on the air and rose up with skilled movements, and there wasn't the slightest lack of fluency. If it was an ordinary martial artist that had just broken through to the void-prying stage, the martial artist would at least require a period of time to familiarize himself before being able to control the air and fly. But Duan Lingtian was different. Duan Lingtian had merged with the lifetime worth of memories of the rebirth martial emperor, and he was extremely familiar with the technique to control the air and flying. He was easily able to float in the air and was entirely not like a martial artist that had just broken through to the void-prying stage. Little gold is here now as well, and 12 bolts of tribulation lightning will descend from the 6-9 heavenly tribulation. I wonder if I'll be able to smoothly comprehend half-step advanced lightning force by relying on the 12 bolts of tribulation lightning. Duan Lingtian looked up into the sky. The violet-colored lightning within the dark clouds had brewed to the limit, and the first tribulation lightning might descend at any moment. Duan Lingtian's ambition was extremely great. He wanted to comprehend half-step advanced lightning force in one go. According to the memories of the rebirth martial emperor and the records of the lightning worm form, so long as he combined wind force to execute Tempest Point to go against the tribulation lightning, he would be able to use this to comprehend lightning force. Based on the calculations of the rebirth martial emperor, he would at most be able to comprehend elementary lightning force. Presently, the little gold mouse lay on Duan Lingtian's shoulder in cultivation. Although she didn't awaken, because she didn't leave Duan Lingtian by 100 meters, the 6-9 heavenly tribulation would replicate an extra bolt of tribulation lightning that targeted the little gold mouse every time a bolt of tribulation lightning descended. Duan Lingtian planned to shoulder the 6 bolts of tribulation lightning that targeted the little gold mouse as well. Needless to say, Duan Lingtian's thought was extremely insane. Finally, the lightning within the dark clouds in the horizon had accumulated to the limit, and a bolt of lightning that was as thick as an infant's arm was condensed. Bang! The bolt of lightning descended from the sky, carrying along a shocking might as it struck straight towards Duan Lingtian's head. It was the first tribulation lightning. In almost an instant, another bolt of tribulation lightning struck down right after the previous, and the target of this bolt of tribulation lightning was instead the little gold mouse that was cultivating on Duan Lingtian's shoulder. HMPH. Duan Lingtian's gaze was slightly cold and he wasn't afraid in the slightest as he went to meet the bolt of tribulation lightning head-on. Tempest Point. With a raise of his hand, Duan Lingtian pointed out and his strength fully exploded out. Swish! A milky white beam of origin energy completely condensed together before emitting a piercing howl as it shot out, and its target was the bolt of tribulation lightning that had struck down first. Strands of azure-colored energy twined on the surroundings of the beam of origin energy, and they were like numerous azure-colored little snakes that were swimming about. It was precisely the half-step advanced wind force that Duan Lingtian had comprehended. After he pointed out, Duan Lingtian didn't dare dally. Tempest Point. He pointed out again, and a similar beam of origin energy pierced towards the other bolt of tribulation lightning. Bang! Bang! 2 enormous bangs practically sounded out at the exact same instant. The incomplete Tempest Point that Duan Lingtian executed had easily annihilated the 2 bolts of tribulation lightning. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief, and he looked at the horizon with a serious expression. Although he'd easily stopped the first bolt of tribulation lightning, he knew that the truly formidable tribulation lightning was coming later on. That day, he'd witnessed the little gold mouse overcoming the 6-9 heavenly tribulation with his own 2 eyes. Bang! In next to no time, the second bolt of tribulation lightning had condensed into form and descended with a bang. Bang! Another bolt that possessed a similar might followed closely behind it. 2 bolts of tribulation lightning again. One shot straight towards Duan Ling Tian, the other went straight towards the little gold mouse. However, the little gold mouse was still cultivating now, and only Duan Ling Tian could be relied upon to forcefully shoulder these 2 bolts of tribulation lightning. Swish, swish, he pointed out another 2 times, and the milky white beam of light that was twined with wind force shot out via the tempest point Duan Ling Tian executed and moved to intercept the 2 bolts of tribulation lightning. Bang, bang, the 2 bolts of tribulation lightning were annihilated once more. Meanwhile, Duan Ling Tian felt his vital blood and energy roil. The strength of 2 bolts of tribulation lightning is extremely strong, as expected. Duan Ling Tian took a deep breath and continued to look up into the sky, awaiting the 3rd bolt of tribulation lightning. Earlier, Duan Ling Tian obtained a certain amount of gains from successively shouldering 4 bolts of tribulation lightning. Every time he executed Tempest Point and pointed towards the tribulation lightning, he was able to clearly feel the changes in the lightning within the tribulation lightning. Lighting. It was violent, wreaked havoc, and possessed a shocking might. Bang! The 3rd bolt of tribulation lightning came as scheduled. Bang! Behind it, another bolt of tribulation lightning followed. Duan Ling Tian's gaze was cold. Tempest Point. Duan Ling Tian pointed out with a raise of his hand, and the beam of light that was twined in wind force instantly swept towards the 1st bolt of tribulation lightning. Bang! The tribulation lightning and beam of origin energy exploded at almost the exact same instant, then they transformed into nothingness. Meanwhile, Duan Ling Tian's internal organs trembled and he felt his vital energy and blood roil. The might of the 3rd bolt of tribulation lightning is actually so strong. When he saw there was still another bolt of tribulation lightning flashing over from behind, whereas he was temporarily unable to execute a 2nd tempest point, Duan Ling Tian chose to avoid. Whirlwind. Duan Ling Tian's figure moved, he seemed to transform into a gust of wind, and seemed even more like he was racing with that bolt of tribulation lightning. However, although his speed was swift, the speed of the tribulation lightning was swifter. But Duan Ling Tian didn't plan to pull apart the distance between him and the tribulation lightning, because he knew that it wasn't realistic. The reason he chose to avoid was only for the sake of allowing himself to catch a breath. After all, after he executed Tempest Point to forcefully withstand the 3rd bolt of tribulation lightning, the origin energy in his body had dispersed and it was difficult for it to be converged in a short amount of time, so it was difficult for him to execute Tempest Point once more. Whereas now, he'd caught his breath. Tempest Point. Duan Ling Tian suddenly turned around and pointed out. A piercing howl deafened the ears and the airflow in the sky moved rhythmically as they flowed apart. Swish! The beam of origin energy that contained half-step advanced wind force shot out, and it fiercely collided with the tribulation lightning. Bang! Another enormous bang sounded out, and at the same time that Duan Ling Tian felt his vital energy and blood roil, this bolt of tribulation lightning that chased after the little gold mouse had finally been withstood. Right at this moment, bang, bang, 2 thunderclaps sounded out one after the other and descended from the horizon. The 4th bolt of tribulation lightning descended with a bang. This time, Duan Ling Tian played the same old trick and successfully stopped the 2 bolts of tribulation lightning, but even then, he was still lightly injured. Fortunately, it wasn't a heavy injury, and after he consumed an injury-curing medicinal pill, he recovered in the blink of an eye. Lightning. Duan Ling Tian looked up into the sky, and as the 5th bolt of tribulation lightning appeared, he obtained some comprehension. Earlier, when he successively withstood numerous bolts of tribulation lightning, and especially when he used Tempest Point to blast them head-on, it had allowed Duan Ling Tian to acquire a clear understanding of the characteristics of lightning to a certain extent. Hiss! With a command of his thoughts, besides the swift and fierce wind force, there was actually a strand of unstable violet energy on the origin energy that leapt about on the tip of his finger. Lightning Force Seed. Duan Ling Tian's gaze abruptly lit up as he knew that he'd already taken the first step. A lightning force seed was the foundation of lightning force. Comprehending a lightning force seed meant that he would quickly be able to truly comprehend lightning force. The 5th bolt of tribulation lightning, come. Duan Ling Tian looked up into the sky with an expression of anticipation. He believed that now that he'd comprehended a lightning force seed, So long as he continued to closely come into contact with the tribulation lightning, he would surely be able to comprehend true lightning force. This was something that he was extremely confident about. Bang, bang, along with two terrifying sounds of lightning strikes, the thick bolts of lightning descended with a bang, and they seemed like two meteorites that fell from the horizon. Tempest Point. Duan Lingtian stepped up into the sky to greet the first bolt of tribulation lightning and pointed out. Swish. This time, besides the fierce azure-colored energy that twined on the beam of origin energy that shot out from the tip of Duan Lingtian's finger, there was another thread of faint violet-colored energy, and it was precisely the lightning force seed. Duan Lingtian had a feeling that the Tempest Point he executed now completely couldn't be compared to the Tempest Point he executed in the past. The current Tempest Point had both wind force and lightning force. Although the latter was only a lightning force seed, it was sufficient to allow the Tempest Point to ascend onto a new stage. So long as the lightning force seed is able to transform into true lightning force, my Tempest Point will officially step into the initial stage. At that same time that Duan Lingtian pointed out, he thought in his heart. Whereas in this instant, the origin energy beam that Duan Lingtian shot out, the Tempest Point that possessed initial form, collided with the fifth bolt of tribulation lightning and emitted an enormous bang. The airflow in the sky flew about as sounds of air exploding rose and fell continuously. Pooh! At the instant the Tempest Point collided with the tribulation lightning, the violent energy contained within the tribulation lightning shook Duan Lingtian's internal organs to the point he couldn't refrain from spitting out a mouthful of blood. Duan Lingtian was injured quite heavily. Bang! Right when Duan Lingtian's body was shaky and on the verge of collapse, the other bolt of lightning that targeted the little gold mouse descended as well. This bolt of tribulation lightning was replicated on the foundation of the fifth bolt of tribulation lightning of the 6-9 heavenly tribulation, and its might was extremely formidable. In a short amount of time, not to mention condensing his origin energy once more, Duan Lingtian, who was injured quite heavily, was even slightly unable to catch his breath. Whirlwind. Duan Lingtian gritted his teeth, wanted to execute his movement technique and dodge. But even with the assistance of the half-step advanced wind force, his dispersed origin energy's speed was far inferior to the bolt of tribulation lightning. Little gold. Duan Lingtian's expression went grim. He couldn't take into consideration that the little gold mouse was still cultivating, and he directly sent a voice transmission to pierce into the little gold mouse's ears. Practically at the instant he sent the voice transmission, that bolt of tribulation lightning had already descended straight down towards him. Although the target of the tribulation lightning was only the little gold mouse, the little gold mouse lay on his shoulder, so for a time, he'd become the target of the tribulation lightning as well. The tribulation lightning was high above in the sky, yet its terrifying aura enveloped downwards and practically sealed Duan Lingtian within it, causing Duan Lingtian to feel as if he was within a thunderstorm. A bright light entered his eyes as the aura of lightning carried along the might of nature as it swept over. At this instant, Duan Lingtian abruptly closed his eyes, seeming to be lost in comprehension. This is lightning. At this time, Duan Lingtian even forgot that we was in a dangerous situation, and he still silently savored the aura of lightning, comprehending the characteristics of lightning, comprehending everything of lightning. The lightning force seed Duan Lingtian comprehended was slowly strengthening. When the bolt of tribulation lightning was just about to blast Duan Lingtian. Squeak squeak. The little gold mouse suddenly awoke and emitted a sharp cry. 494 Chapter 495, Mastery Stage Tempest Point. Amongst the sharp cry, the little gold mouse transformed into an exceedingly swift gold light that left Duan Lingtian's shoulder and shot into the sky. Whereas that bolt of tribulation lightning that crashed downwards made a turn above Duan Lingtian and chased towards the little gold mouse. The little gold mouse stopped and stood in midair. As she gazed at the tribulation lightning that flashed over, the little gold mouse's jade-green eyes contained slight disdain mixed within. Bang! The aggressively approaching tribulation lightning charged straight towards the little gold mouse. When the tribulation lightning was about to strike onto the little gold mouse's body. Squeak! The little gold mouse hurriedly enlarged herself, then opened her mouth and emitted a sharp cry. Instantly, the air shook and the surrounding airflow started to fly into the little gold mouse's mouth at lightning speed. Whereas the bolt of tribulation lightning was completely swallowed by the little gold mouse. It started with a bang but ended with a whimper. The tribulation lightning that approached aggressively had become the food in the little gold mouse's stomach in the blink of an eye. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse rubbed her expanded little stomach and looked at Duan Lingtian complacently, as she wanted to seek credit. In next to no time, she noticed that Duan Lingtian stood there like a block of wood and didn't have the slightest reaction, and she instantly dropped her little head in slight dejection. Bang, bang, the dark cloud in the horizon shook as the sixth bolt of the 6-9 heavenly tribulation, which was the last bolt of tribulation lightning, had finally condensed into form and descended with a bang. Accompanying its descent was another bolt of tribulation lightning with an equivalent might to it. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse's eyes lit up. Then she flashed out to come close to Duan Lingtian and waited for the arrival of the two bolts of tribulation lightning. The first bolt of tribulation lightning descended with a bang, and it was like a falling meteorite that aimed straight for Duan Lingtian. Squeak. However, although the tribulation lightning approached menacingly, along with the little gold mouse opening her mouth, the tribulation lightning was completely swallowed by the little gold mouse into her stomach. Subsequently, the little gold mouse's gaze descended onto the bolt of tribulation lightning in the back. Right when the little gold mouse opened her mouth once more and intended to swallow the last bolt of tribulation lightning. Little gold, leave this bolt of tribulation lightning to me. Duan Lingtian awoke and his figure flashed out the instant he opened his eyes. Swift like the wind, violent like lightning. In the blink of an eye, Duan Lingtian had risen into the air to intercept the last bolt of tribulation lightning that crashed down. Now, I ought to test the might of the lightning force I've just comprehended. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into a smile as his gaze abruptly squinted. With a raise of his hand, his sleeve fluttered as he pointed out, and his origin energy condensed to possess an awe-inspiring might that seemed as if it could point through anything. Tempest Point. The beam of origin energy shot out from the tip of Duan Lingtian's finger, and it contained strands of azure energy and strands of violet energy twined around it, yet the violet energy was slightly weak, but not too much weaker. The beam of origin energy swept out accompanied by wind force and lightning force, and it formed the true Tempest Point. Swish! The Tempest Point tore through the sky, emitting ear-piercing howls that deafened the ear, and the airflow in the sky flowed swiftly as he fiercely pointed onto the last bolt of tribulation lightning. Bang! An enormous bang sounded out, and the last bolt of tribulation lightning was directly destroyed by Duan Lingtian's point and it transformed into nothingness. Whereas Duan Lingtian's expression remained unchanged and he was calm and collected. His internal organs only shook slightly. At this moment, in the sky above Duan Lingtian, another 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes had appeared beside the original 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes. Amongst the 1,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes that had appeared, the strength of 500 ancient mammoths belonged to his wind force, half-step advanced wind force. The other strength of 500 ancient mammoths belonged to his lightning force, half-step advanced lightning force. Duan Lingtian had his wish fulfilled and comprehended half-step advanced lightning force. I have to thank the fifth tribulation lightning that was replicated to strike towards Little Gold for being able to comprehend half-step advanced lightning force. When he recalled what happened earlier, at the same time that Duan Lingtian felt a slight lingering fear in his heart, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. That bolt of tribulation lightning flashed straight towards him, and if the little gold mouse didn't make a move in time, he would die without a doubt. At that moment, he even felt slightly regretful. Why did he have to be arrogant and not utilize a spirit sword since the beginning? Of course, Duan Lingtian didn't use a spirit sword for the sake of using Tempest Point to go against the tribulation lightning, and to comprehend lightning force while he went against the tribulation lightning. Although Tempest Point could be executed while utilizing a spirit sword, while its might would be great, its effect would be reduced greatly. The Tempest Point was a finger martial skill after all. Using a finger to execute it was the correct way. Right at the instant when Duan Lingtian was enveloped by the energy of the tribulation lightning and was about to be struck. Somehow, he obtained a clear comprehension of the characteristics of lightning, and every aspect of lightning. This type of comprehension was similar to sudden insight, yet wasn't completely sudden insight. After all, he'd already developed a lightning force seed by himself. Just like that day, he didn't possess any knowledge about wind force, then directly comprehended wind force in a single sudden insight. That was true sudden insight. Whereas this time, Duan Lingtian relied more on the tribulation lightning and Tempest Point to be able to allow his lightning force seed to grow into half-step advanced lightning force in a short period of time. Half-step advanced wind force, half-step advanced lightning force. Presently, my Tempest Point can already be considered to have broken through to the mastery stage. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, and he couldn't help but reveal a delighted expression. This was something that he'd never expected earlier. The Tempest Point was a high-grade Earth rank martial skill that came with the lightning worm form, and its might was extraordinary. Whereas the advancement in its stage was instead extremely difficult, and it was different than ordinary high-grade Earth rank martial skills. The advancement of stage of ordinary high-grade Earth rank martial skills was directed at the advancement of the corresponding type of force for it to advance alongside the force. Just like the high-grade Earth rank movement technique, whirlwind, that Duan Lingtian cultivated. So long as his wind force advanced to a certain extent, whirlwind would advance alongside it. Whereas Tempest Point instead required the simultaneous advancement of both wind force and lightning force to complete the advancement of a stage. Just like before, although Duan Lingtian had comprehended half-step advanced wind force, because he didn't comprehend lightning force, even if he executed Tempest Point, it was an incomplete Tempest Point, and it was even to the extent that it hadn't even stepped into the initial stage. The stage advancement of Tempest Point required both wind force and lightning force to satisfy the conditions at the same time. Just like now, Duan Lingtian's wind force and lightning force had both stepped into the ranks of half-step advanced force, and the Tempest Point they complemented each other to execute was not inferior to any high-grade Earth rank martial skill in the memories of the rebirth martial emperor. After all, this was a martial skill that was executed by using two types of force that complemented each other. This type of high-grade Earth rank martial skill was extremely rare. Even within the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, there weren't many martial skills of this kind. Finally, Duan Lingtian returned to his senses and looked at the little gold mouse that had descended onto his shoulder, then said with a smile, "Little gold, looks like you're still quite a distance away from breaking through to the next level. I thought you would be able to use the medicinal strength of the Monkey King wine to break through. Big brother Lingtian, give me a little more." The little gold mouse looked eagerly at Duan Lingtian, and her pair of jade green eyes were filled with yearning. Later, Duan Lingtian shook his head, then his brows raised as his gaze shot onto the vast city that was behind the distant clouds and mist. "We ought to enter the city. Once we've settled down in Dragon and Phoenix Academy, I'll give you another 2 drops of Monkey King wine, and it's the last 2 drops. Big brother Lingtian, you're too stingy." The little gold mouse sent a voice transmission once more, and she was slightly unhappy. "It isn't that I'm stingy, but the Monkey King wine is similar to spirit fruits. Once consumed, consuming it again later on would cause its effects to reduce limitlessly. Even if I give you more, it's just a waste. Moreover, I don't have much Monkey King wine in my possession." Duan Lingtian shook his head and emitted a bitter laugh. "This little gold really thought that the Monkey King wine in my possession is normal wine, and she can get as much as she wants." The little gold mouse went silent for a moment when she heard Duan Lingtian, then she became joyful once more. She was like a child that hadn't grown up. "Let's go to the city." Duan Lingtian carried the little gold mouse on his shoulder as he flashed out to head towards the imperial city. Duan Lingtian only descended from the sky when he arrived outside the gate of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial city. Meanwhile, many void-prying stage martial artists that similarly descended from the sky had noticed Duan Lingtian. At the beginning, they didn't pay much attention to it, but when they clearly saw Duan Lingtian's appearance, they were all dumbstruck. "This young man looks to be not even 25 years old, but he's actually already a void-prying stage martial artist." A void-prying stage martial artist couldn't help but gulp down a mouthful of saliva as he spoke in shock. "It's impossible, crazy young master. Who's the top amongst the 5 great young masters of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom only barely stepped into the void-prying stage at the age of 29. The companion of the former shook his head and didn't dare believe it. Could it be that he took good care of his appearance? The former was surprised and bewildered. Possibly. The latter nodded seriously. Waves of similar discussion sounded out from the void-prying stage martial artists that saw Duan Lingtian descend from the sky. Duan Lingtian naturally heard it and was speechless. Took good care of my appearance. To think that they had the nerve to think of such a thing. However, they've reminded me that within the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, there are indeed many methods of maintaining one's appearance, but most of them are assisted by medicinal pills. If it's a woman or a martial artist that has stepped into the void-prying stage, then it isn't so troublesome. Duan Lingtian searched through the memories of the rebirth martial emperor and he thought in his heart. That deadbeat dad of mine is over 50 years old, yet looks to be around 30, there are only 2 possibilities. 1. He has consumed medicine that slows down aging of the appearance. 2. He'd once broken through to the void-prying stage. At this time, Duan Lingtian thought of his deadbeat dad, Duan Rufeng, at the first possible moment. 495 Chapter 496, Competing in Wealth. As for women, perhaps it was because of the various advantages that the heavens bestowed upon men, so the heavens gave women compensation in other aspects. So long as women paid attention and took care normally, they were able to slow down their aging to a certain extent. Just like Duan Lingtian's mother, Li Ru. Although she was over 40 years old, she looked to be not even 30. This was the advantage women were born with. So long as one's cultivation steps into the void-prying stage, although it isn't able to allow one to become young again, as long as one intends it, then one can use origin energy to control aging to a certain extent, even to the extent that when some martial artists at the void-prying stage and above were close to the end of their lives after hundreds of years, they still had an appearance of a middle-aged man. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. Presently, the memories of the rebirth martial emperor were endlessly flashing past within his mind. So long as one has the patience to regularly use origin energy to invigorate the skin, flesh, and blood, then the higher the cultivation, the better the effect of the slowing of aging. When the rebirth martial emperor's first lifetime had a cultivation that stepped into the martial emperor stage, he was already 120 years old. But at that time, just from his outwards appearance, he was only a middle-aged man around the age of 50. Through the memories of the rebirth martial emperor, Duan Lingtian found out of the appearance of the rebirth martial emperor when he lived his first lifetime. As for the second lifetime of the rebirth martial emperor, before he underwent rebirth, he was at the age of 113, and from his outwards appearance, he was only a young man around the age of 30. Duan Lingtian's mood surged. A 113-year-old person looked like a young man that was around the age of 30. What sort of notion was this? Of course, Duan Lingtian also knew the reason that the second lifetime of the rebirth martial emperor was able to maintain such a young appearance. The second lifetime of the rebirth martial emperor had stepped into the void-prying stage at the age of 25. Since that moment, the rebirth martial emperor intentionally used origin energy to slow down his aging. After that, the rebirth martial emperor found the treasures left behind by his first lifetime and stepped into the void initiation stage, void interpretation stage, and void transformation stage with extreme speed. Later on, relying on the experiences from his first lifetime, the rebirth martial emperor had even become a martial monarch at the age of 50. At the age of 60, the rebirth martial emperor successfully became a martial emperor. In the Cloud Continent, the accomplishments the rebirth martial emperor's second lifetime attained, especially the time spent to become a martial emperor, could be said to be unprecedented. At least, in the history of Cloud Continent, such a young martial emperor had never once appeared yet. Once one becomes a martial monarch, even though one can't become young again, one can retain one's youthfulness forever. If the rebirth martial emperor was able to become a martial monarch 10 years earlier, perhaps he would be able to maintain an appearance at the age of 26 or 27. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. Martial artists at the void-prying stage and above mostly can't be judged based on their outward appearance or judge their age based on outward appearance. Even if a void-prying stage martial artist didn't intentionally slow down his aging, his formidable origin energy would be able to unintentionally slow down his aging, and his aging would be far slower than ordinary martial artists. Duan Lingtian shook his head and withdrew his thoughts. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian paid no attention to the surprised gazes from the surroundings and took large strides towards the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial city. The imperial city of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom was boundlessly vast and possessed imposing grandness, and it was like an enormous beast that lay there. The gate that was open wide was like this enormous beast's opened bloody mouth that was endlessly swallowing the people that arrived into its belly. At each side of the gate was a row of guards in armor. They stood ramrod straight with gazes that didn't contain any feelings, they gazed forward coldly and indifferently. Duan Lingtian walked slowly into the city, and the little gold mouse on his shoulder looked around with interest. The cute little gold mouse attracted the attention of many people. These people were mostly women and children. "Mother, what a cute little gold mouse," an immature voice sounded out from nearby, and it was a childish and naive voice. Duan Lingtian lightly turned around and he saw a nearby ordinary woman embracing a little boy as she walked. "Young master, children speak carelessly, I hope you can forgive us." The woman hurriedly covered the little boy's mouth, and she had a terrified expression as she bowed and apologized to Duan Lingtian. "There's no harm done." Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. He naturally guessed why this woman would have this sort of reaction. The violet clothes he wore weren't made of ordinary cloth, but were instead made of special silk that was worth 1,000 gold. Obviously, the woman discerned that he wasn't ordinary from the clothes on his body. Duan Lingtian instead didn't know that it wasn't only because of the clothes on his body that the woman discerned he wasn't ordinary. The disposition he unintentionally revealed, coupled with his clothes, gave the woman a feeling as if he was a respected existence that she couldn't offend. This world is like this, ranks are clearly distinguished. Before these ordinary people, I'm extraordinary and superior. But before me, those experts at the void initiation stage and above are similarly superior. The woman's reaction caused to Duan Lingtian sigh with emotion. He knew that so long as he stood at the highest peak and became superior above all, only then would this feeling disappear. Otherwise, there would always be someone that stood at a position higher than him who would be able to look down upon him. Duan Lingtian's heart of the strong had unknowingly become even more firm. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse suddenly cried out, and at the same time, a voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. Big brother Lingtian, I'm hungry, I want to eat meat, I want to eat meat. Duan Lingtian lowered his head and rolled his eyes at the little gold mouse. You're really a glutton, little fellow. Although he said this, Duan Lingtian still found a restaurant. The restaurant was extremely luxurious and was far from something a small restaurant could compare to. It was only approaching lunchtime now and the customers in the restaurant had only just started increasing. Duan Lingtian occupied 2 tables by himself. Customer, do you need anything? The restaurant attendant greeted Duan Lingtian and served him enthusiastically. Duan Lingtian chose a seat by the window, then pointed at the empty table beside him and said to the attendant, fill that table with a variety of fragrant roasted meat. As for this table, give me a few of your restaurant's specialties and a jug of wine. Yes, customer, the attendant replied and left, and he had a smile on his face. He loved to serve these types of straightforward guests like Duan Lingtian. As for Duan Lingtian wanting 2 tables and only ordered roast meat for the other table, he didn't feel it to be strange. He thought that this customer still had companions that hadn't arrived, and these companions of the customer liked to eat meat. Only when the food arrived and he saw the little gold mouse on Duan Lingtian's shoulder fly out to clean up all the roast meat on the lone table did the attendant become completely dumbstruck. As an attendant in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's Imperial City, he felt that he'd seen many aspects of the world. But such extravagance of ordering a table of roast meat for a pet mouse was truly something he'd seen for the first time. The world of the rich is really not something we can understand, even if it's the young masters and young misses of the Imperial City's great clans. I've seen many of them, yet none of them are so extravagant. The attendant couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Meanwhile, the little gold mouse's table attracted attention as expected. Extravagant. Too extravagant. This is the Drifting Fragrance restaurant and that table of roasted meat is at least 100 silver, 100 silver only for a pet mouse's meal. Waste. Such a waste. I wonder from which clan is this young master from, he's actually so wasteful. Even if he has money, it shouldn't be spent like this. For a time, the crowd of customers in the restaurant whispered in discussion. Haha, little gold, looks like they think you're only a pet mouse. Duan Lingtian paid no attention when he heard the whispered discussions of these people, and he couldn't help but tease the little gold mouse via voice transmission. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse cried out twice in displeasure, yet she couldn't be bothered to pay attention to other people and continued eating meat by herself. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. It was unknown what their expressions would be if these people that sighed saying he was extravagant and wasteful knew that this little gold mouse had helped him earn 100 million gold. Almost 1 year ago in Black Wind City, he'd precisely relied on the deterrent force of the little gold mouse to force the Ma clan and Huang clan to hand over a large sum of money. That large sum of money was a total of 100 million and a few 100,000 gold. 100 silver for a table of food. Duan Lingtian didn't mind. 100 silver was equivalent to 2 gold. Compared to the gold that the little gold mouse had earned for him, it was simply a drop in the ocean that was not worth mentioning. Along with the passage of time, the restaurant was crowded with customers and there were no empty seats. Many people could only sigh and leave because there were no seats. Most of these people that left glanced enviously and jealously at the little gold mouse that occupied a table by herself, and they all felt that they lived their entire lifetimes inferior to a pet mouse. Duan Lingtian was still drinking wine and eating when a few figures approached, and it caused him to frown. Duan Lingtian lazily raised his head and he noticed a young man in embroidered clothes was bringing along 2 middle-aged men to walk over. The gaze of the young man in embroidered clothes descended on the little gold mouse and he was slightly surprised. Kid, this is your pet. Behind the young man in embroidered clothes, a middle-aged man took a step forward, then looked at Duan Lingtian before speaking in a low voice. Go accompany your pet, give this table to my young master. This is your reward. As the middle-aged man spoke, he had an aloft imposing manner, and he casually tossed out a gold bill. Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian raised his hand to receive the gold bill, then glanced at the denomination atop it, and he was slightly surprised. A 100 gold bill, truly generous. HMPH. Scram since you've accepted the money. When he saw Duan Lingtian was surprised by a 100 gold bill, the corners of the middle-aged man's man curled into a disdainful expression, and he grunted coldly as he shouted in a low voice. Slap. Duan Lingtian's gaze suddenly squinted, and a stack of gold bills appeared in his hand with a raise of his hand. This is 10,000 gold, take the money and scram. I want you to really roll your way out. As Duan Lingtian spoke, he looked up at the middle-aged man and grinned. His smile was filled with evilness. Want to compete in wealth with me? 10,000 gold. Duan Lingtian's voice wasn't soft and it attracted many gazes. In next to no time, when their gazes touched the young man in embroidered clothes, all their gazes slightly shook as if they'd seen something terrifying. Duan Lingtian naturally noticed these gazes. 496 Chapter 497, Black Horse. Obviously, the background of this young man in embroidered clothes wasn't simple. However, was Duan Lingtian the type of person that would throw his dignity beneath another's feet and allow another to trample upon him due to being afraid of another's background? The answer was no. Kid. The middle-aged man's face sank when he saw Duan Lingtian was so insensible, then he shouted in a cold voice. Do you know who my young master is? Let me tell you, my young master isn't someone a lowly commoner like you can offend. If you're sensible then quickly FK off, or it might be too late to regret. Too late to regret. Duan Lingtian put away the 10,000 gold in his hand, then glanced indifferently at the middle-aged man that was bloated with arrogance, and his face held a smile since the beginning. Then I'm curious, exactly how will you make me feel it's too late for regret? Duan Lingtian's mood was extremely bad because his meal was disturbed. Kid, you're courting death. The middle-aged man's face sank as he shouted out explosively, then his body inclined forward as his hand descended like fans, enveloping Duan Lingtian as it approached menacingly. Above him, 1,500 lifelike ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. This middle-aged man was obviously a half-step void stage martial artist. Meanwhile, the customers in the restaurant that saw this scene couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh. They sighed that Duan Lingtian was too arrogant and didn't know how to bide his time and had bitten off more than he could chew. Half-step void stage. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth curled into an arc when he saw the middle-aged man attacking him, and there was slight disdain mixed within the arc. Bang! The middle-aged man's palm descended with raging origin energy twined around it, and it carried the force to split a mountain as it flashed towards Duan Lingtian's chest, desiring to blast Duan Lingtian out of the restaurant with a single slap. Who is courting death is still uncertain. Right at this crucial moment, Duan Lingtian spoke with a slightly lazy tone. Subsequently, the people present noticed to their shock that above the violet-clothed young man that spoke lazily, 2,000 ancient mammoths had appeared instantly. In the next moment, they saw the young man casually raise his hand to latch onto the middle-aged man's hand like an eagle catching a chick. Go down. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian revealed a cultivation that completely crushed the middle-aged man, and after he easily latched onto the middle-aged man's hand, he casually threw the middle-aged man out the window. After the middle-aged man was thrown out, the origin energy on his body raged, causing him to shake in midair, and he seemed as if he wanted to adjust the way his body fell. HMPH. A wisp of disdain appeared on the corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth, and he successively pointed out with his finger with a raise of his hand. Swish, 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 comma. In an instant, numerous powerful fingers that were condensed purely from origin energy howled as they flew out and flashed straight towards the middle-aged man. Duan Lingtian held back in his attack. The middle-aged man reacted and didn't dare make any rash movements, and he allowed his body to fall while maintaining its original position. He knew clearly in his heart that once he moved rashly, those fingers formed from origin energy that shot down would strike him without mercilessly and penetrate his body. Bang! The middle-aged man whose body was stiff and was terrified to the point he broke out in cold sweat fiercely fell onto the street outside the restaurant. He fell flat on his face and was in an extremely sorry state. As expected, this scene drew the attention of the people passing by to come spectate. Within the restaurant, after he taught the middle-aged man a lesson, Duan Lingtian didn't even look the other middle-aged man and the young man in embroidered clothes in the face. At this moment, the pupils of the young man in embroidered who'd maintained his composure all along couldn't help but constrict, and he glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian. Brother, I never expected that your age is so young, yet you're already a void-prying stage martial artist. Admirable. Admirable. Duan Lingtian disregarded the young man in embroidered clothes. The young man was slightly embarrassed, then he forced out a trace of a smile on his face. I'm the Ji clan's Ji Feng, I hope that brother can forgive my subordinate for offending you. Can you not disturb my meal? Duan Lingtian raised his head and glanced impatiently at Ji Feng. Ji Feng's expression froze, then he took a deep breath and didn't flare up. I'm sorry, I'll leave now. As he spoke, Ji Feng brought along the other middle-aged man and left the restaurant. The farce ended here, and it caused the people in the restaurant to feel slightly dissatisfied. I thought that Ji clan's young master Feng would avenge his subordinate, but I never expected he would instead leave with his tail between his legs. Truly disappointing. According to me, this Ji clan's young master Feng is an intelligent person. This young man's cultivation has already stepped into the void-prying stage at such a young age. Obviously, he's a young genius that has been recommended to the Dragon and Phoenix Academy this time. I wonder which power recommended him. This young man looks to be not more than 25 years old. Even if he's good at taking care of his appearance, I'm afraid he wouldn't be more than 30 years old. Such natural talent isn't inferior to the 5 great young masters in the slightest, yet I've actually never heard of him before. The crowd of customers in the restaurant whispered in discussion, and they were all shocked by Duan Lingtian's cultivation. As for Duan Lingtian, he couldn't be bothered to pay attention to these people. Not more than 30 years old. Duan Lingtian felt speechless in his heart. Outside the restaurant, Ji Yu had a calm expression as he brought along the 2 middle-aged men and walked off into the distance, and it was as if he'd already tossed the incident that occurred earlier to the back of his head. Young master, that kid is too arrogant. Could it be that we're just going to let it go like that? The middle-aged man that was thrown out of the window by Duan Lingtian earlier had an enraged expression as he spoke while gnashing his teeth. HMPH. Ji Feng glanced coldly at the middle-aged man and said indifferently, I won't stop you if you want to go back and teach him a lesson, but, let me tell you beforehand. Even if you're killed by him, our Ji clan won't stand up for you. The middle-aged man was instantly afraid when he heard this. His head drooped, and he didn't dare speak again. Next time, don't use force to solve every problem, use your brain more often. Ji Feng taught the middle-aged man a lesson. That violet-clothed young man possessed a cultivation at the void-prying stage at such a young age. He's surely a young genius that has been recommended to the Dragon and Phoenix Academy this time. With his strength, it isn't difficult for him to become eminent in the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Even if this type of person can't become a friend, he absolutely must not become an enemy. Moreover, do you think that a power that can foster a young expert like this is simple? As he finished speaking, Ji Yu's tone obviously contained fear. Ji Feng's words caused the 2 middle-aged men to nod repeatedly, and they felt heartfelt admiration. Especially that middle-aged man that was making a row about being not resigned. His face flushed crimson and felt that he'd lived these years for nothing, as he was unable to see things as clearly as his young master. However, he has probably just arrived at the Imperial City. I guess he will go register himself at the Dragon and Phoenix Academy later. Let's go have a meal first, then go register at the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Young geniuses that came from all around the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, I can't wait. Ji Feng's face revealed a smile as he muttered. The other people ought to not be as abnormal as that fellow from before, right? Half an hour later, Duan Lingtian and the little gold mouse successively finished cleaning up their tables, then paid the bill and left. Do you know how to go to the Dragon and Phoenix Academy? Duan Lingtian looked at the attendant and asked. The attendant was reverent and respectful towards Duan Lingtian now, and he gave Duan Lingtian the directions respectfully, not daring to be rude in the slightest. What a joke! The young man before him was a void-prying stage expert. Although he'd seen many void-prying stage experts, it was the first time he'd seen such a young void-prying stage expert. Moreover, the young man had just thrown the subordinate by the Ji clan's young master Feng's side out the window, and his fierceness incurred reverence. Okay. After Duan Lingtian found out the location of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy, he nodded and looked at the 100 gold on the table from before. Take this gold bill to pay the bill and keep the change. I never imagined that I'd only just arrived at the Imperial City and there's already someone treating me to a meal. Duan Lingtian stood up as he spoke, and he left the restaurant after the little gold mouse leapt onto his shoulder. That 100 gold was precisely the gold left behind by the subordinate of that young master Feng of the Ji clan. Thank you, young master. Thank you, young master. The attendant's face flushed when he heard Duan Lingtian, and he was extremely excited. 100 gold. It was equivalent to 10,000 silver. It was equivalent to his salary for tens of years. Under numerous jealous and envious gazes, the attendant took the gold bill and went to pay the bill. That young expert really came for the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. I originally thought that 1 year from now, the 5 young genius representatives of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom that would head to the Darkstone Empire would be occupied by the 5 great young masters. Now it would seem that another black horse has appeared. 5 great young masters. According to me, the black horse in the younger generations of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom isn't just that young expert from before. Supposedly, the 7-star sword sect that has already been annihilated has a disciple that survived, and with that person's natural talent, I'm afraid he has already broken through to the void-prying stage now. That 7-star sword sect disciple seemed to be called Duan Lingtian, and he'd once successively defeated the Saber Young Master and Zither Young Master. Most importantly, his age is far younger than any one of the 5 great young masters. In terms of natural talent, no one in the history of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom can surpass him. Quote. The crowd of people in the restaurant discussed animatedly, and their words were filled with high praise towards Duan Lingtian. However, even if his natural talent is great, even if he has already broken through to the void-prying stage now, would he dare make an appearance? The Azure Forest Tri-sect have been racking their brains trying to find him, as they want to drag him out and kill him. That Duan Lingtian is so young yet he had already caused that Azure Forest Tri-sect to be alarmed. I can imagine that if he can live on properly and mature, he'll surely become the nightmare of the Azure Forest Tri-sect. If I was him, I'd lay dormant, and before I mature, I'll absolutely not appear under the eyes of that Azure Forest Tri-sect. I instead hope he can come out. In the path towards the selection of the candidates for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, I'm extremely curious about how far exactly a monstrous genius like him can go. I'm extremely curious as well. Duan Lingtian naturally didn't know that the crowd of people within the restaurant he just left were discussing him. Currently, he's already arrived outside the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. 497 Chapter 498, Press Forward. Duan Lingtian stood on the open ground and he could see many young geniuses walking over here one after the other from all directions. Excitement and arrogance was contained between their brows. So many people. They're all people that have been recommended by the various powers of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Duan Lingtian was shocked when he saw so many people, yet he understood with a quick thought. These few days are the last few days for the young geniuses of the various powers to register for the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Many people ought to only be coming to register during these few days. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart and his gaze shot ahead. There was an arched gate over there. At the side of the gate stood a tall stele and 4 large words were engraved in exquisite writing on the stele. Dragon and Phoenix Academy. These 4 words were engraved in one go without stopping, and they're filled with a peerlessly fierce aura. I presume it was personally engraved by an expert. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. Presently, there were 3 old men sitting behind stone tables that were situated before the arched gate, and a brush and ink were placed neatly on the stone table. The young geniuses that gushed over from all directions arrived one after the other before the 3 old men, then they withdrew their proof and passed it over for the 3 old men to inspect. After they inspected that nothing was wrong, the 3 old men would complete the registration for them and give them a command token. The people that obtained the command token would jubilantly pass through the arched gate and walk into the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. There are really many people. Duan Lingtian looked at the 3 extremely long lines before him and couldn't help but shake his head, then his body slightly inclined forward as he intended to line up. Right at this moment, roar! A loud roar sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ear, and it was like a thunderclap. Not only did it alarm Duan Lingtian, even the young geniuses that were lining up couldn't help but turn around and look. Duan Lingtian turned around. With a glance, he saw an enormous leopard walking over here, and everywhere it passed, everybody would move away. This leopard's entire body was covered in snow-white fur, like a white flame that was burning, and every time it opened its blood mouth to emit a low roar, it would make others to feel coldness that came from the bottom of their hearts. Snow leopard. Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised as he never expected there were people that used fierce beasts to move around in the imperial city. The snow leopard was a 7th level nascent soul stage fierce beast. In Duan Lingtian's heart, 2 words emerged at the first possible moment. Acting cool. It's the Yin clan's Yin Jie. Yin Jie, the second young master of the Yin clan. In terms of natural talent, he's only inferior to the 5 great young masters of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. I've heard of him since long ago. Since he's able to tame a snow leopard, the strength of this Yin clan's second young master is surely at the 7th level of the nascent soul stage or above. This Yin clan's second young master, Yin Jie, is 29 this year. Supposedly, his cultivation has already stepped into the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. Many people whispered in discussion, and it also allowed Duan Lingtian to find out about the identity of the person that had arrived. Yin clan. Duan Lingtian's brows raised, as he'd never heard of this clan. However, it may be assumed that it was probably a clan in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial city, and it wasn't an ordinary clan. Duan Lingtian was able to discern this from the fearful gazes of many young geniuses. Haha, Yin Jie, you've come really early. Right at this moment, a hearty laughter sounded out. Accompanied by this hearty laughter was a shocking beast roar. An enormous wolf with black striped fur appeared, and its pair of blood-red eyes stared fixedly at the snow leopard as if it might pounce on and battle the snow leopard at any moment. Black striped wolf. Many people emitted surprised exclaims. Black striped wolf, a 7th level nascent soul stage fierce beast that was even more ferocious than a snow leopard. Another formidable fierce beast. Many young geniuses looked at the person on the back of the black striped wolf with envy. Duan Lingtian looked over as well. This was a young man that wore black clothes and was around the age of 30. His appearance was ordinary, yet overbearing arrogance was emitted from between his brows. Half-step void stage. Duan Lingtian's spiritual force stretched out and detected this person's cultivation at the first possible moment. It's the Sima clan's Sima Yang. Sima Yang is a genius martial artist of our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom as well. In terms of natural talent, he's similar to Yin Jie and is only inferior to the 5 great young masters. Someone recognized the black-clothed young man and exclaimed in a low voice. HMPH. Sima Yang, it's truly a coincidence, I can even encounter you when I'm just going to register. Yin Jie grunted coldly, and he was obviously not on good terms with Sima Yang. As soon as he finished speaking, Yin Jie disregarded Sima Yang and directed the snow leopard to continue towards the gate of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. Everywhere he passed, all the young geniuses moved aside. In next to no time, the snow leopard beneath Yin Jie had arrived before Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian just happened to be standing in the empty space before the gate. At this moment, Yin Jie had 2 choices. The first, go around Duan Lingtian's left. The second, go around Duan Lingtian's right. After all, this empty space was extremely spacious. But Yin Jie didn't choose and instead glanced coldly at Duan Lingtian before coldly shouting. Where did this little fledgling kid come from? FK off. Duan Lingtian glanced at Yin Jie indifferently then paid no attention to him, and it was as if Duan Lingtian entirely didn't hear Yin Jie's words. Yin Jie's face sank. Roar. The snow leopard beneath Yin Jie seemed to have noticed its master's rage and howled at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian frowned and finally spoke lazily. The road is so wide, don't you know how to go around? Go around. When Yin Jie heard Duan Lingtian, his face that was already gloomy couldn't help but emit an expression of ridicule. Fledgling kid, Yin Jie, never go around. If you're sensible then quickly FK off. Otherwise, I'll make my snow leopard directly press forward over you. His words were filled with a threatening intent. Duan Lingtian's calm expression finally sank. Make the snow leopard press forward over me. This Yin Jie really thinks he's the judge that decided life and death. Then I really want to know how you will make your snow leopard press forward over me. The gloominess on Duan Lingtian's face vanished in an instant, and replacing it was a brilliant smile. Duan Lingtian's words caused Yin Jie to be unable to refrain from frowning. As the second young master of the Yin clan and a martial artist that possessed extraordinary natural talent in the martial Dao, it was naturally impossible for him to be an idiot. Presently, there were only 2 possibilities as to why the violet-clothed young man before him still dared be like this after knowing of his identity. The first, this was a hot-headed fellow that completely didn't know what status the Yin clan possessed in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial city. The second, this was an existence with a shocking background and was unafraid of his Yin clan. For a time, he instead started to hesitate. Roar. Right when Yin Jae was hesitating, another beast roar sounded out. A young man in embroidered clothes sat on an enormous tiger that was covered in sky blue fur and walked over. Everywhere the tiger passed, the people on the road would move aside. Ji Feng. The brows of Sima Yang who sat on the black-striped wolf raised up, and he greeted the young man in embroidered clothes. It's him. Duan Lingtian recognized the person that had arrived. It was precisely the young man in embroidered clothes that he'd met in the restaurant earlier. At that time, he'd tossed the simple-minded subordinate of the young man out the window. Duan Lingtian originally thought that the young man would stand up for his subordinate. But unexpectedly, the young man actually left directly. At that time, Duan Lingtian knew that this person was one who was extremely scheming, and before the young man fully understood Duan Lingtian's background, it would be absolutely impossible for the young man to make trouble for Duan Lingtian. This sort of person was extremely terrifying. It's the Ji clan's Ji Feng. In terms of natural talent, this Ji Feng is a figure on par with Yin Jae and Sima Yang. His age is only 29, yet his cultivation has already stepped into the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. Many young geniuses recognized Ji Feng. Yin Jae, you should obediently go around, haha. Ji Feng imperceptibly nodded with a smile to Duan Lingtian, then he looked at Yin Jae who rode the snow leopard and stood before Duan Lingtian, and he laughed loudly. There was no lack of ridicule within his laughter. Obviously, Ji Feng didn't get along with Yin Jae. Sima Yang looked at Yin Jae as well, and the corners of his mouth curled into a slight ridiculing smile. Yin Jae, go around obediently. Do you really think that the road before the Dragon and Phoenix Academy's gate belongs to your Yin clan? HMPH. Yin Jae was originally suspicious of Duan Lingtian's background and identity, but now that he was ridiculed by his old rivals, his face instantly flushed red and he was enraged to the extreme, causing him to completely lose all reason. Kid, I'll give you one last chance, FK off. Otherwise, I'll take your life. Yin Jae's icy cold eyes stared at Duan Lingtian as he shouted sternly. At this moment, he'd vented all his rage onto Duan Lingtian. Want my life? Duan Lingtian shook his head and said indifferently, there's a large empty space here and the spectating young geniuses can bear witness that I was standing here first, as the saying goes, first come, first serve. I've come first, and you came later. Logically speaking, it ought to be you that goes around. Now, you actually want my life for this trivial matter. As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, although his tone was still calm, his eyes already flickered with frightful cold lights that were difficult to notice. Duan Lingtian was enraged. Has this young man gone mad? Does he know who he's talking to? He's also a young genius that has been recommended to the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. I wonder which power recommended this person. Does that power have no other people? A little youth like this is able to be recommended to the Dragon and Phoenix Academy as well. He's going to suffer. Of course, Yin Jae's temper is famous for being bad. Since this young man doesn't know how to appreciate the kindness Yin Jae has shown him today, he will surely completely enrage Yin Jae. The surrounding crowd of young geniuses whispered in discussion. Yin Jae, I think this brother speaks logically. First come, first serve should be stressed on for everything. Right at this moment, the enormous tiger Ji Feng rode slowly walked over, and when it arrived near Duan Lingtian, it went around him. After that, Ji Feng looked at Yin Jae, and the ridicule on his face remained the same. HMPH. Ji Feng, you're really getting more stupid the longer you live. Yin Jae glanced coldly at Ji Feng, then his gaze descended onto Duan Lingtian before saying with a sneer. You actually went around for a little kid like this. Today, I'll let you see how I, Yin Jae, will make this person that can make you go around him to obediently lie down. As he finished speaking, Yin Jae's tone was filled with ruthlessness. Press forward, Yin Jae shouted out with a low voice and ordered the snow leopard. 498 Chapter 499, Crippled. Along with Yin Jae's low shout, the gazes the crowd of young geniuses around the gate of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy shot at Duan Lingtian were filled with pity. They all felt that Duan Lingtian was about to suffer. Roar! The snow leopard raised its head and roared explosively, and the might of its roar shook the skies. Its enormous body moved, charging towards Duan Lingtian as it opened its bloody mouth and fiercely bit towards Duan Lingtian. When the snow leopard was about to bite Duan Lingtian, squeak! The fluffy fur on the little gold mouse that stood on Duan Lingtian's shoulder instantly stood up, and she emitted a sharp cry that was filled with extreme rage. Whereas right at this moment, an unbelievable scene appeared, and the people present were all dumbstruck when they saw the scene before them. Some people even stretched out their hands to fiercely rub their eyes as if they were confirming that they weren't seeing things. They saw that along with the little gold mouse's sharp cry, the snow leopard that charged at Duan Lingtian in full fury had instantly stopped on the spot. In the next moment, the enormous body of the snow leopard shook, and it actually lay flat on the ground and shivered. Whereas Yin Jie, who was on the back of the snow leopard, wasn't careful and was thrown off the snow leopard, and he fell to the floor in a sorry state. Roar! The snow leopard lay on the ground, and its head stuck closely to the ground as if it was a commoner that submitted itself to the emperor. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse stood on Duan Lingtian's shoulder and lifted up her front limb like a human, then she proudly held up her head as if she was an exalted emperor. As a demon beast, she only had to reveal her aura to a fierce beast and it would be sufficient to make the fierce beast submit in terror. This scene caused everyone to be dumbstruck. A formidable fierce beast snow leopard actually prostrated itself before a pet mouse. Simply unbelievable. Since when have snow leopards become so cowardly? Isn't that just a cute pet mouse? It only let out a cry and the snow leopard was like a mouse that had seen a cat, and it directly prostrated itself. HMPH. This snow leopard has really brought shame to all nascent soul stage fierce beasts. Many spectating young geniuses were contemptuous towards the snow leopard's reaction. Only Jifeng and Sima Yang had a serious expression, and their eyes were filled with fear when they looked at the little gold mouse on Duan Lingtian's shoulder. They knew that the little gold mouse that stood on the young man's shoulder was absolutely not a pet mouse. What a joke! Could a pet mouse cause the fierce beasts beneath them to become restless? Earlier, when the little gold mouse emitted the cry that was directed at the snow leopard, they felt the fierce beasts beneath them become restless and uneasy. If it wasn't for them calming the fierce beasts beneath them would have already gone mad and fled. Jifeng, you know him? Sima Yang looked at Jifeng and asked via voice transmission. Obviously, he discerned that Jifeng's actions earlier were completely leading Yin Jie step by step, causing Yin Jie to lose all reason and make a move against that mysterious violet-clothed young man. Not really, I met him at a restaurant an hour ago. Jifeng shook his head and replied via voice transmission. At the same time, Jifeng looked at Yin Jie, who stared blankly with a dumbstruck expression, and the corners of his mouth curled into a mocking smile as he added fuel to the fire. As expected, the slave beast is just like the master. Yin Jie, you should apologize to this little brother. In this way, perhaps he will be magnanimous and forgive your actions. Slave beast was the name people on Cloud Continent addressed demon beasts and fierce beasts that were enslaved. Of course, a demon beast that wasn't enslaved like the little gold mouse who was taken to be a friend by Duan Lingtian wasn't considered as a slave beast. This Jifeng, Duan Lingtian frowned as he was able to discern that this Jifeng wanted to see the world burn. As expected, he's a scheming person. Moreover, Duan Lingtian noticed that after Yin Jie heard Jifeng's words, he quickly recovered from his shock. When he looked at Duan Lingtian, his eyes were filled with ruthlessness and shame. You can't afford to offend some people. Duan Lingtian spoke indifferently when he saw Yin Jie was about to flare up. Kid, you're courting death. Yin Jie shouted out explosively, and his voice was filled with extreme rage. Swoosh. At the same time, Yin Jie's body shook and seemed to transform into a cannonball that charged straight towards Duan Lingtian. Not only that, as Yin Jie's figure flashed out, his right hand formed a fist, then origin energy skyrocketed atop it before flashing out to head straight towards Duan Lingtian's chest. Whoosh! In the sky, 1,200 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form and dashed out in tow. Obviously, Yin Jie attacked out under extreme rage and had exploded forth with him full strength. Idiot! Duan Lingtian never expected that after the snow leopard was terrorized by the little gold mouse to lay down, Yin Jie would still dare attack him, and his face instantly sank as cold lights shot out from his eyes. At the same time that he shouted out coldly, Duan Lingtian moved. Tempest Point. With a raise of his hand, Duan Lingtian pointed out with his finger, and he even didn't use wind force or lightning force, using the point force that was purely condensed from origin energy to whistle out and intercept Yin Jie's fist that approached in full fury. Swish! A deafening piercing howl suddenly sounded out. The point force that was condensed from the strength of 2,000 ancient mammoths broke through the origin energy on Yin Jie's fist like sweeping through dry leaves, and it easily touched onto his fist. Hiss! Duan Lingtian's point force that was condensed from origin energy pierced into Yin Jie's fist as if it pierced into tofu. Ah! At the instant a small hole was pierced on Yin Jie's fist and fresh blood splattered out. Yin Jie's shrill cry sounded out alongside it, and it was extremely miserable. Subsequently, Yin Jie stretched out his other hand to tightly hold onto his bloody right hand. At this moment, Yin Jie's body shivered as cold sweat poured out of him. No, impossible. As he looked at the sky above Duan Lingtian, at the 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes that gradually dispersed, Yin Jie shook his head ceaselessly and was unwilling to believe that all this was real. This young man that looked to be not more than 25 years old was actually a first-level void-prying stage expert. Yin Jie, who'd stopped his bleeding using origin energy with great difficulty, had an expression that was ghastly pale to the extreme. After he clearly sensed his own injuries, his face changed again, becoming exceedingly savage. You crippled my hand, you crippled my hand. The Yin clan won't let you off, the Yin clan won't let you off. Yin Jie's voice contained traces of trembling mixed within because he's noticed that his right hand was completely crippled. The origin energy point force of the young man had easily crippled two of his fingers' bones, then bore into the bone of his arm without slowing down in the slightest, and it completely minced his marrow and everything within the bone. Presently, even if he possessed a grade 4 great recovery pill, it would be impossible for his hand to be healed. Duan Lingtian had a calm gaze when faced with Yin Jie, who had a warped and savage expression, and he said indifferently, "I told you before you attacked, you can't afford to offend some people. Once you've offended them, you have to pay the price." Yin Jie's face flushed red, and only now did he recall that the young man had indeed said this. However, at that time, he was enraged to the extreme, so how would he possibly listen to what Duan Lingtian said? He only thought that Duan Lingtian was being deceptive. "You're dead, you're dead." Yin Jie hatefully glanced at Duan Lingtian, then he leapt onto the back of the snow leopard that lay on the ground and looked at the snow leopard as he shouted coldly. "Get up, do you think we haven't lost enough face?" However, the snow leopard utterly paid no attention to him, it just lay there and shivered as it was facing the aura of a demon beast that the little gold mouse emitted. Useless trash. When he saw the snow leopard disregarding him, Yin Jie's face was extremely unsightly, and with a raise of his left hand, a spirit saber had appeared in his hand. The spirit saber descended and directly pierced into the snow leopard's skull, killing it. Perhaps, even until death, the snow leopard never imagined that its owner would suddenly kill it. "I won't let you off, I absolutely won't." Yin Jie glanced viciously at Duan Lingtian once again. At this moment, he seemed to have transformed into a toxic viper that was waiting for an opportunity to swallow Duan Lingtian up. Subsequently, Yin Jie's figure flashed to leave the gate of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy, and he vanished at the end of the road. Obviously, he'd returned to the Yin clan. Duan Lingtian paid no attention towards Yin Jie's threats. Yin clan. In the past, the 5 great sects of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom were at the top, and besides the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family, there wasn't a single power formed from a clan that was able to compare with any one of the 5 great sects of then. Presently, 2 of the 5 great sects had been successively annihilated, and the 3 remaining sects had combined together to form a formidable power that wasn't much inferior to the imperial family. The Azure Forest Tri-Sect. Whereas the Azure Forest Tri-Sect undoubtedly wished for nothing more than to kill this survivor of the 7-Star Sword Sect, Duan Lingtian, and celebrate afterwards. Duan Lingtian daring to stand here today meant that he was mentally prepared to face the Azure Forest Tri-Sect. He wasn't even afraid of the Azure Forest Tri-Sect. Would he be afraid of a Yin clan? After Yin Jie left, Duan Lingtian returned to his senses and intended to line up to register himself. Presently, the young geniuses everywhere Duan Lingtian passed moved aside, and in the end, they parted ways to show him to the front, allowing him to register first. No matter where, experts were able to obtain the respect of others, and obtain some privileges. Void prying stage, he's actually a void prying stage expert. At this moment, besides Ji Feng, the gazes of the crowd of young geniuses including Sima Yong were filled with shock and astonishment when they looked at Duan Lingtian. A young man that looked to be not over 25 years of age possessed a cultivation at the first level of the void prying stage. Such accomplishments were extremely shocking. Ji Feng, you knew before this. Sima Yong looked at Ji Feng, and when he saw Ji Feng lightly nodding, the corners of his mouth twitched. You really fcked Yin Jie over. One of Yin Jie's hands is crippled and I'm afraid he'll have no fate with the few spaces to head to the Darkstone Empire. Along with Sima Yong speaking, the gazes of most of the young geniuses descended onto Jifeng, and they felt a chill run down their spine. If it was said that the violet-clothed young man that crippled Yin Jie's hand was a formidable fierce tiger that could annihilate everything, then this Jifeng was a venomous snake that killed others without a trace. The former was much more terrifying to them. With a few words, he'd crippled the #1 genius of the Yin clan's current younger generation. How many people in the world were capable of this? 499. Chapter 500. Rules. Under the gazes of everyone present, Duan Lingtian walked step by step to arrive before a stone table outside the Dragon and Phoenix Academy gate. Senior. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian noticed that the old man behind the stone table was looking at him with a dumbstruck expression, and he couldn't help but remind him. The old man recovered from his shock, and only now did he realize his loss of composure, causing him to go red in embarrassment. Then he stretched out his hand. Young man, your proof of recommendation. Presently, after the old man had seen Duan Lingtian's cultivation, his tone was slightly courteous. Senior, this is my proof of recommendation. Duan Lingtian raised his hand and withdrew the proof from his spatial ring, and it was precisely the proof that the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor gave him that day. When they saw the old man receive the proof in Duan Lingtian's hand, some of the surrounding young geniuses couldn't help but move closer, and their gazes shot straight towards the proof of recommendation that was gradually opening in the hands of the old man. Even if it was the young geniuses in the outer circle, they all had curious expressions. I wonder what power he's from. Ji Feng's eyes squinted and he was filled with curiosity towards Duan Lingtian's identity in his heart. That Sima Yong now looked at the scene before him with interest as well. He was similarly curious. Crimson Sky Kingdom, you're a member of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Finally, the old man found out Duan Lingtian's background from the proof of recommendation Duan Lingtian had passed over, and he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Crimson Sky Kingdom. Although the old man's voice wasn't loud, it seemed exceptionally clear under the silent atmosphere in the surroundings. He's from the Crimson Sky Kingdom. I know the Crimson Sky Kingdom, it's one of the kingdoms amongst the numerous kingdoms that are subordinate to our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. I've never heard of any extraordinary figure coming from there in the recent years, yet I never imagined that such a monster has appeared this time. A small kingdom is able to give birth to such a terrifying genius martial artist. Unbelievable. I thought earlier that he's a member of some reclusive power in our Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. At that same time that the surrounding crowd of young geniuses sighed with emotion upon finding out about Duan Lingtian's background, they couldn't help but be slightly disappointed. Duan Lingtian's background was inconsistent to their expectations. After all, the shock Duan Lingtian gave them earlier was too great, possessing a cultivation that had stepped into the void-prying stage at such a young age. In terms of natural talent, he was even not inferior to the most outstanding of the 5 great young masters of their Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's younger generation. So he's only a person from a small kingdom. Ji Feng's brows raised and he thought in his heart. Looks like I was too sensitive. But, even if he's from a small kingdom, his accomplishments in the future will surely not be small with his natural talent. Such a person can only be a friend and not an enemy. A person from a small kingdom. Sima Yong was slightly surprised. In next to no time, the people present were deathly silent once again. Only because that the old man who received Duan Lingtian's proof of recommendation had spoken once more. You're called Duan Lingtian. The old man's voice was filled with surprise and astonishment. Duan Lingtian. When this name was called out by the old man, after the atmosphere at the scene went silent, it was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples and the scene completely went into an uproar. Duan Lingtian. Isn't Duan Lingtian the peerless genius of the 7-Star Sword Sect? Supposedly, when the 7-Star Sword Sect was annihilated, the higher-ups of the 7-Star Sword Sect put their lives on the line to send Duan Lingtian out, and took him to be the future hope of the 7-Star Sword Sect. Wouldn't he that Duan Lingtian that the Azure Forest Tri-Sect wished for nothing more than to kill and celebrate after the deed is done, right? It wouldn't be such a coincidence, isn't he from a small kingdom? Perhaps he's someone with the same name. Under the waves of discussion, the gazes of the young geniuses present at the scene shot onto Duan Lingtian, and they seemed like they wanted to obtain Duan Lingtian's confirmation. The 3 old men that were in charge of registration show their gazes as Duan Lingtian now as well. Duan Lingtian noticed the old man before him looking at him, yet hesitating to speak. Duan Lingtian guessed what the old man was thinking and nodded lightly. Right, I'm Duan Lingtian, besides being a member of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, I'm also an inner court disciple of the Seven-Star Sword sect. Duan Lingtian's words had undoubtedly confirmed his identity. It's really him. No wonder his natural talent is so terrifying, so he's that Duan Lingtian. I was thinking where so many monsters came from in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. So it turns out that he's the peerless genius of the Seven-Star Sword sect, the existence that had once successively defeated the Saber Young Master and Zither Young Master. Instantly, the gazes the young geniuses in the surroundings shot at Duan Lingtian were filled with excitement. He's that Duan Lingtian. Jifeng and Sima Yong looked at each other with tacit understanding, and when they looked at each other in the eye, they saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Jifeng, I truly never imagined that we'd be able to see the rumored monstrous genius of the Seven-Star Sword sect. Sima Yang's voice transmission was filled with an emotional sigh. Yeah, I truly never imagined it. Jifeng had a complicated gaze. He's too rash. If I were him, I'd conceal myself and wait until I possessed sufficient strength before appearing before the eyes of the world. For the sake of preventing future troubles, it would be impossible for those members of the Azure Forest Tri-sect after he appeared in the Imperial City in such a grand fashion. Sima Yong sighed. Everyone has his own aspirations. Since he dared come here, it shows that he's already prepared and isn't afraid of that Azure Forest Tri-sect. Looks like there will be shows to see in the future. Jifeng's voice transmission was filled with anticipation. This is your command token. The old man passed the command token in his hand to Duan Lingtian, and at the same time he reminded Duan Lingtian via voice transmission. Duan Lingtian, I'm afraid it won't be long before the news of your appearance in the Imperial City will spread to the Azure Forest Tri-sect. I suggest that in the next year, unless it's a mission the Academy asks you to complete, otherwise, you better not leave the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. In the Dragon and Phoenix Academy, even if the Azure Forest Tri-sect is any bolder, they still wouldn't dare do anything to you directly. The old man's tone was serious, and his words were filled with confidence towards the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. The Dragon and Phoenix Academy was the academy that was specially established by the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family to select the young geniuses for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, and it was protected by the imperial family. Even though the Azure Forest Tri-sect was formidable and very influential, it wasn't enough when standing before the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family. Only because the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom's imperial family possessed an expert at the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage or above, whereas the Azure Forest Tri-sect didn't. Thank you for the reminder, Senior. Duan Lingtian's heart felt warm when he heard the old man, and he walked into the Dragon and Phoenix Academy after receiving the command token. Not long after he walked past the arched gate and entered the Dragon and Phoenix Academy, a middle-aged man walked over to greet him, and the middle-aged man glanced indifferently at Duan Lingtian. Wait a moment. This middle-aged man had a stiff expression and his tone was extremely icy cold. Obviously, he didn't know of the incident that occurred outside the academy earlier, and didn't know of Duan Lingtian's identity. Otherwise, he would probably find it difficult to maintain his composure. Duan Lingtian nodded and waited on the spot. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian saw two people walking over shoulder to shoulder, and it was precisely Jifeng and Sima Yong. The three of them quickly gathered together. You three newcomers, follow me. The middle-aged man called Duan Lingtian and the others before walking towards the inner parts of the Dragon and Phoenix Academy. I truly never imagined that you're actually that peerless genius of the Seven-Star Sword sect, Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian followed behind the middle-aged man when a voice suddenly sounded out by his ears, and the voice was filled with an emotional sigh. It was precisely Sima Yong who spoke to Duan Lingtian with a light smile on his face. Peerless genius. Duan Lingtian shook his head. How can I be considered to be a peerless genius? How great is the Cloud Continent? Moreover, not to mention that foreign lands, even if it's within the Darken Dynasty, there are many people that are able to possess accomplishments that surpass me at my age. The eyes of the middle-aged man that led the way revealed slight surprise, and he even glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian when he heard Sima Yong speak, and when he heard Duan Lingtian's neither haughty nor humble reply, he couldn't help but nod to himself. Neither arrogant nor conceited, he was indeed a good seedling. Darken Dynasty. Sima Yang's expression froze when he heard Duan Lingtian, and he said with a bitter smile. I didn't compare the Darken Dynasty with you. In the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, your natural talent can indeed be considered to be a peerless genius. Darken Dynasty. Sima Yong knew his limitations. Perhaps he had the opportunity to become eminent in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and head to the Darkstone Empire to compete with the young geniuses of the various Imperial Kingdoms. But wanting to become eminent in the Darkstone Empire was practically impossible. Not to mention the young geniuses of the Darken Dynasty, even if it was the young geniuses of the Darkstone Empire, he still didn't dare compare with them. Duan Lingtian shook his head and didn't say anything further. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. He'd never once thought that he would stay in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom for his entire lifetime, so it was impossible for him to not compare himself with the geniuses in the martial Dao from outside the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Haha, Sima Yang, Duan Lingtian's vision is different from us. Our vision is fixed on the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, and would rather be the head of a dog than the tail of a phoenix. Whereas Duan Lingtian possesses a monstrous natural talent and would leave the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom sooner or later to wander in an even vaster world. Jifeng laughed heartily, and his words seemed to have seen through Duan Lingtian's thoughts. This caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to help from looking slightly more highly of Jifeng. Sima Yang laughed embarrassedly when he heard this. It's my vision that's too narrow. Right at this moment, the middle-aged man that lead the way spoke slowly. After all of you enter the Dragon and Phoenix Academy, you must comply with the rules of the Academy. In the following year, besides being able to go out when the Academy distributes missions for all of you to gain experience, all of you only have one opportunity to go out every month, and you can choose this time yourselves. Once someone goes against the rules, that person will be expelled from the Academy and lose the qualification to participate in the competition 1 year from now. As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, Jifeng and Sima Yang revealed bitter smiles, as they never expected that there would be such rules. Duan Lingtian's brows raised, but he remained indifferent. As far as he was concerned, his target was the competition held by the Dragon and Phoenix Academy 1 year from now. Moreover, it was to become eminent and win the opportunity to head to the Darkstone Empire to compete with the young geniuses of the Darkstone Empire and the various Imperial Kingdoms. As for if he could stay in the Dragon and Phoenix Academy, or if he had time to go out, he didn't care.